great. All right, so good evening, everyone. This is the May 2023 Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee meeting. There's one door, so if you need to get out, there it is.
Jump out of the window.
Yeah, I'm gonna think you jump out the window is a good thing. We have some guests, so I know Tim, Jim, Laura, Joe, and Erica. Joe and Mary Beth.
Erica.
Oh, yeah. And I'm Tony, Andrew. Tell me, Elsa, Steve, Leilani, Bernie, and Patty. I said Laura. Okay. All right, great. All right, let's just jump into this. All right. So we didn't get to minutes, so we'll try to get all of them done at the next meeting. Okay. All right. So first was updates, and Leilani has a big handout here. Right. Why don't you briefly go through this? This could take us
want to go through this, but so again, I usually I get my updates from Jerry. Jerry's out, so Dan is the next person in line, and what Dan just gave me everything. Just went through this whole our agenda and just gave me updates for it all, and just wrote it out. Point blank. I can make more copies if you need, but if you need it, here you go.
Sure.
No, go ahead. That means I don't have to read it. Andy has to read it out.
Oh, yeah.
Like the 4 questions.
Right, pass the buck. But that is what it is. If you have extra questions based upon as we go down our all of these things, our agenda, then just ask.
These are updates from Dan?
Yes.
On item 1, snow removal, and need approval from the two-way authority.
I was confused by that.
Yeah, I am too.
So, okay.
We will question that because I thought we just needed it from the Army Corps and the DEC.
Yes, but somewhere, somehow, they got involved, and I
Maybe
believe
that was because of our friendly meeting with them.
could have been.
There you go.
Ag involved work on their property, so maybe
Yeah.
that's the.
No, I think that's more of their talking about their stuff that we
Yeah.
talked about with
Yeah, this
them.
might be in the
I think it's in the wrong
All right,
place.
yeah. All right, so we'll question it.
Okay, what else?
Army Corps project, right, so we kind of, the replacement of the Ward Avenue Bridge, replacement of the Waverly Bridge is supposed to start on July 1st, right? June 1st or July 1st?
July 1st.
I don't know who it was, possibly Bernie, but if regarding, there was a question about removal of the Center Avenue Bridge during the process, like, why don't you get rid of it? Dan suggests that we do not get rid of the Center Avenue Bridge in the process. That's the ACE is gonna do
That's
their
the walk
own.
bridge.
Yes, the walk bridge, but don't get rid of it now because it needs something, right now there needs to be something there so people can pass through.
ACE is doing that.
But that's not, it will be taken care of during the ACE project, but not with this Waverly Avenue Bridge project.
Right,
So I don't know who was the one who reported or asked the question, can it be removed?
I don't think it was anybody here.
That actually, I could say that was at one of the meetings that we attended with the industrial advisory business community.
Got it.
That's where they asked you why don't they just take both out, and we were trying to explain it's 2 parallel projects. One is the town. the
Yes,
other
and it'll
one's
be
ACE.
done
That's
at a different time, but you can't,
That's where you
at the
got
same
that.
time, no.
But on the new business, Leilani, April, May floods, I have that on there, and I wanted to talk about that.
Okay,
Because I have a very strong opinion of that bridge.
I'm gonna get more copies.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to that. So I wanted to.
Center Avenue walk bridge.
Yes.
I don't remember.
I think that was at your meeting.
That's a horrible.
I didn't-
Yeah.
I
But
didn't-
Well, it's needed, right, but.
Who don't have cars,
Oh, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
motorcycles.
Sure.
et
But no,
cetera.
we can't take one, it's only.
Well, not motorcycles, just a
Right.
walking bridge.
You can
but-
do a motorcycle over that, Evil Knievel.
But they also have a safer venue, walking through Bob Walker.
Yeah.
If that is causing the residents and commercial businesses a new change in flooding, and it's low hanging fruit, which
It
I
is.
hate to
It
use
is.
that term loosely.
It is.
Who's gonna benefit? 13 people walking over the bridge or 600 people that are flooding? Because we flooded again because of that and other things. So time is wasting for us to have to accommodate people who could possibly walk another 100 feet to a piece of land and cross over.
I think though, getting back to what Alani was saying, is that that particular
Right,
bridge
they're gonna
has
remove-
always been in the site of Army Corps, like even in phase one, the first version.
It should have never
Always
been
one.
left. They
Right,
removed
that should have been taken, by the way, it
they-
should have been
when-
taken.
When they removed the Center Avenue Bridge, they removed that bridge for that very reason. That it was an impairment and it should have been there and it was unsafe. And they put that there to appease rather than to have forward thinking that it was impairing flood flow.
It is, I walked there and
Yeah.
it's very narrow.
Right, but it's not even narrow, it's
It's
low.
low, and that's where
Yes.
everything gets caught, and then it goes over the bank, and boom, boom, boom. So that is.
So we wanted this, why don't we just discuss it now? So.
Okay.
yeah,
Wait, what
and-
are we
and
discussing?
When we.
The walkway.
The walkway.
Okay.
So Leilani, we're just gonna talk about, so I put it on as item 5B, right? The April, May floods. So when walking around after, during those floods, what I saw down there, as usual, the water's hitting that walk bridge, right? And backing up. All the end of your streets down there are all flooded, right? And then this is, Bernie, we went there, right? Then it hits, then it has to come, so first it makes a 90-degree turn by Bud Walker Park to Plaza, right? Then it hits that walk bridge, then it hits the Waverly Bridge, which we know is coming out. So I think, okay, when the Waverly Bridge comes out, that obstruction's not gonna be there, but that walk bridge will still be there. So I'm thinking right now, from a low hanging fruit, if we could take the walk bridge out, the next thing I see is the next 90 is right by Marble Mystery Oil, right? So the water was jumping over the curb there, going through Marble Mystery Oil, down the railroad tracks, all the way down to all your properties down there.
Fenimore.
So I'm thinking if you put sandbags on that corner there, got rid of the walk bridge, it should at least push it down past the Mason. So I also have on here to talk about that little dog run there. And one of our residents emailed me at one point that did they ever get their permits? I don't know. But that dog run to me is obstructing progress and the water, so it backs that whole thing up. And to me, it's very low hanging fruit. So I would say if we get our silt removal permits, that should, so between sandbags there, the walk bridge and doing some opening up and removal between, say, the Sunoco and Marble Mystery Oil, you're gonna reduce flooding in the area.
Is there a way?
Wait, can I jump in? I'm sorry, because this is why I came, because we were in the street patrolling the whole entire area when the flood occurred. And the water jumped.
No,
This is last month.
a month
The
ago.
last
Okay, I'm just
the last two rains, I got water in my basement again.
Done.
Okay, we're getting water again, and something changed. Because it was reported that the dam didn't overflow, and it was reported that that Columbus Park didn't overflow, but Washingtonville came over, and Washingtonville jumped its banks at 6:00 PM. It didn't jump its banks. That footbridge wasn't the cause of it. That footbridge was an additive. It jumped its banks before Bud Walker Park. The water was rushing so quickly, it was a roaring rapid. Within 20 minutes,
The Sheldrick River.
yeah,
Yes.
within 20 minutes, that water was over its embankments, down Madison Street and making a left-hand turn in the backyard of Washington Street. Before that happened, like you said, water was backing up already on Fenimore Road. We were calling because DPW was being flooded. It was a completely different flood scenario, completely off kilter from what we're used to. It was a different,
I can tell you
Change.
why, because I have it right here. Because this was happening on Fenimore and Hoyt, because the water could not get into the Sheldrake because the Mason, the water was coming and running off of
Mhm.
that and keeping this pipe from being able to get access to Sheldrake. So this water was going over to you guys.
Mhm.
Did you
This
send
time.
that to anybody in the village?
I don't think I actually did. But mean, because I gotta tell you, because I'm so tired of sending video, but on this one, that's exactly, and this was
So you- so
at,
we
this was
concur
at
with you.
6:08, this was at 6:08.
Mhm.
So we're saying that with this last two rainstorms, the flow of water changed.
Did not over, did the water in the shelter did not go over, did not exceed the bank, did not go over.
No, I'm just saying the
It did by
flow.
you.
But it did by
But
us.
initially, usually that's where it comes from. That's where most of the water comes from. And this one,
At 6
was
o'clock,
backflowing
at 6
up.
o'clock, the Sheldrake River went over its banks. We watched it.
Right,
We went down. and looked.
right, and what also was the
At Plaza,
compromise.
at
Yeah, at Plaza.
the
It
su-
didn't go over at Columbus Park, which is not the norm.
Right, okay.
So the water needed to, we have a 2, 3-part, 4-part punch here, and we're all lay people having this
Sure.
conversation, but we're all, I'm a 56-year flood expert at this point. But the water, we watched it. We went around the block, and the next thing you know, you couldn't do it anymore. You couldn't drive. The water came over that fast.
I also felt that the river stayed up high for several days. And I'm wondering, was the town of Amerenik lowering their reservoir down? Did that help to impact that flow of water that everybody's saying was coming down Sheldrake even before it got to the DPW area? How do we find that out? Do we get,
I'm writing it down. Last two
Yeah,
water.
do we get,
Find the
do
date.
we
Usually
find
there's
out
a coordination.
when they're,
Rainstorms.
yeah, that's what I'm asking. I don't know.
There's a compromise on Plaza Avenue with the sewers closest to the Sheldrake. There's no backflow on those sewers. Those sewers that are there, they just empty out into the Sheldrake. So when the Sheldrake gets high, the water comes up through the,
Right there.
Mhm.
Yes, like that. Like
right,
that, like what he just did.
right,
Yeah,
right. So it backflowed
He's
up
like,
from
"Oh,
Plaza Avenue.
he's just gonna spit it out.
Are you all right?
He's fine.
Down the wrong pipe.
Yeah, he's fine.
You joking?
As long as he's
He's
close.
coughing.
He's
He's
coughing.
coughing.
so-
He's
Yeah,
fine.
just-
35
Let's see
people
how
here.
I came up.
Someone from home. You okay? Water went down, we're okay.
Exactly.
That's what happens. Change in flooding pattern, you know?
Put your, hold your hand.
So it's a good engineering design for the last, 30 years there on Plaza Avenue. Every time it floods down there, that's what we get. And it's compromised. It could be fixed. You need a backflow. Simple. Just put a backflow on a pipe coming up and you're good to go.
Yeah, but Tim, I think the other thing that happens,
But it's a bad contribution to the neighborhood. That's
right,
what
but
this is.
the other thing is that when that pipe gets to the Sheldrake, when the Sheldrake's high, the water can't get out. So I don't think it's so much that the water pushes back, but now all the storm water that comes off of everybody's house and in the streets, that has no place to go. So to me, that's what builds up so much, right? So
Well, it's an empty pool. It all feeds in and it pulls up in there and it's a combination of all the negative numbers adding up into a problem where we
right,
see.
so every drop of storm water that comes down after that pipe gets, the flow stops, it's
If I can, I'm sorry, Sheriff, if I can, because I know you're here, talking about the bridge, just for a second before we talk about that. Can we just finish our thoughts on what to do about that bridge? Low-hanging fruit. Do we have to wait for Army Corps? Is there a particular reason? Because again, I know from the inception, that was always on the list of things they're gonna pluck. In fact, that's what the word they used, plucking it. That's how easy it was going to be. Is there a way for us to sort of maybe take this in our own hands? Say, look, I mean, it's not a
The
huge
bridge.
excavation,
Wait,
the footbridge. So is that kind of what we're asking over here?
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's the flip.
well, then, let's fine tune what the ask is, so I can just
Exactly.
ask, because I don't, we're trying to figure it out, but let me just note, let's figure out the ask, so then I can ask.
Let's ask.
Well, I think the ask would be, that's not really why I came here, but the ask, that really wasn't it, but the ask would be, if the Army Corps is going to start working, that's something that they could do, they could expedite. It
But
shouldn't
remember,
be-
that's 5 years from now, 4 or 5 years. from now.
So if they can move that G to A along with the Waverly Avenue Bridge and start alleviating things in a wider spectrum, because you still have Bud Walker Park to walk through. You are not going to have that bridge there anymore. And you are still going to be working on the Waverly Avenue Bridge, which is probably going to be an overflow of construction all the way up to that bridge, I could foresee. And if they're going to be working on the bridge, this bridge should be removed to alleviate any backflow towards both of our areas,
Why do we have to wait for the Army Corps? Let's just do it
Because
without the
that
Army
was
Corps.
one of the items.
because it's one of their
Army
items.
Corps, exclusive, it was like, we're gonna let that right out. But and remember.
And it was kind of like at the tail end.
Right. So we're looking shovel the ground, assume 3.5, 4 years, you're looking 5. But I think what I would like to propose to our liaison, to the Board of Trustees, that is there a way to accelerate the review process on that for its removal? Now, the town of Mamaroneck is doing the Waverly Avenue Bridge. That is two completely different components. That
But there's a financial credit of
well,
what?
the town of Mamaroneck is doing it. They're the ones who apply for the grant. They're the ones who actually are handling everything. Other than the village police personnel that will be doing traffic in Washingtonville and industrial area and Mamaroneck Avenue, everything is town of Mamaroneck.
Why are they taking that? Why are they taking that into, if it's in the village of Mamaroneck?
But it's the town of
It's
Mamaroneck.
town
It's the
bridge.
town.
Towns own the bridges
Right.
and are the
So
responsible.
Andrew, let me ask you a question. Why can't they ask the Army Corps, can we take it out?
The village could, because that falls back in the village's Army Corps, the village could ask, can we do this in advance? Now, again, we have a bake sale and see, raise money to remove the bridge. Fact is, that's the ask I think we should focus on.
But is
Can we
that a
add-
town bridge or a
That is-
village bridge? That
That's
one's
a
a village
Mamaroneck
bridge?
That's a
Village of
Mamaroneck.
Mamaroneck
Well,
town
it's
is
a town and
That's-
village
the
are both
town-
Mamaroneck.
it's right, but the
Is it the
town is the
village
one
or
that,
the
the
town?
money that's being used, and correct me if I'm wrong, the money that's being used is exclusively the town.
I'm not talking about the Waverly
Right.
Avenue Bridge, I'm talking about the Center Avenue Walk
Right.
Bridge.
That is our
That's the
bridge.
village
Village.
bridge.
I
And it
believe.
was
That's
an
my question.
additive, it was a bone thrown
So
after
something
they took the center.
Breaks on
avenue.
that, I believe the
No, I
village.
know, I
right?
remember it was here.
So,
Right.
so the Waverly Avenue Bridge is being reconstructed.
It's being demoed and replaced. Right.
Is it they're doing that because of the flooding, or they're doing that because the bridge needs to be repaired?
I think it's more.
Well, the
so.
smoker is doing it.
I believe fire apparatus, emergency apparatus
Can't
couldn't
even
go
go over it
over it.
anymore.
There were a bunch of reasons.
I think
Functionally,
I don't think
it's
it's-
being
right.
rebuilt and supposedly being widened.
While they're repairing it, they're gonna widen.
And
So then it
Arcing
totally,
it,
so it,
widening it, putting.
right, so it totally makes sense. If you're gonna widen that bridge and take care of it, why would you leave the other one up? Because you're gonna have the same problem.
completely agree.
So, yeah, I think you should push forward for that.
Push
Why fix
forward
one without the other?
With the removal of
Removal
footbridge.
of the Whitfield Bridge.
The
We're
center.
being,
At the same time.
we're being damaged by leaving items that can be removed and help, if it's gonna save us an inch of water, every inch counts. And the houses on Madison are being flooded. I was flooded. I had 5 inches of water in my basement.
Okay.
And I want to circle back to sandbags. I think that,
Hold on,
Because
wait,
it was-
hold on.
You're not certain.
oh,
Just, I'm clarifying. So the group is asking,
So Leilani, can I summarize, if you don't mind?
Dave, I said Dave,
Tony.
Tony, go ahead.
We're from the name of
All those
the-
white
Gonna
guys.
get
Really
name
do.
Jesus.
Name
So
tag.
I'm thinking that due to, it appears that the April and May rain events changed the flooding patterns along the shelter. It looks like that immediate actions that could be taken to alleviate the problem would include immediate removal of the Center Avenue Walk Bridge, sandbag the corner of Marble Mystery Oil where the river makes a 90, remove the dog park alongside the Mason, clean out the sheldrake with the silt and trees from Sunoco, from Mamaroneck Avenue, all the way back to Bud Walker Park. So that would be my ask. Because now,
Say, you're asking a group ask.
that's what I'm saying, my ask. I can't do this meeting with that ask. That's what I want to ask. But
I just asked for the group ask, and here you come with your own personal
I'm
ask.
summarizing.
I want to bring something to your attention on that Mason where the dog park is. There is another footbridge there that goes over to the back of Sunoco.
Right, but I don't think that one is pretty high up.
Is it
The water
safe?
was nowhere near that one.
It's lower than the bridge that crosses Mamaroneck Avenue.
Is it safe?
I have no idea. I'm not back there. I just seen it from the Mamaroneck Avenue.
No,
But
if you-
if you're gonna remove
Sure they gotta
footbridges
take
from
that
center, you might as well clear them all.
No, that I don't, I
Next to
disagree
Milano's,
because I don't never see the water hitting that bridge.
It's deeper there.
It's above, you're like.
And it's,
that
yeah,
far
it's an arch bridge.
Now that we're
Alright, so
talking
we're
about the
talking-
bridges, can I ask a question?
Wait,
I'm sorry.
let's
Are you
just, wait,
finished?
let's just finish.
Yeah, I just
with
wanna,
this-
before we leave
So-
the resolution.
I think basically just my suggestion is if you're gonna fix one bridge and there's another one not even 50 feet away, that you're gonna have the same issue, take it out.
Look, I
It's the same
think
problem.
to make this easy, just to focus on the bridge, this is good, but the ask, I think, is, hey, while they're doing the Waverly Avenue, can we explore accelerating the footbridge? Period.
And you're
What
not
can we
taking
do?
away,
Because it's.
they can go to Bob Walker Park.
Right.
They have
It's
a place to cross.
significant place of blockage. And it's on the list of items with Army Corps, but that's not gonna be for several years. This is something that, again, is a low hanging fruit. Let's see if we can accelerate having it removed, even if it means us doing it.
And it's gonna enhance them they're putting in new sewers, they're changing the streets and the sidewalks, enhance the project for us in that area, both sides, industrial and residential. You know,
You're referring to the infrastructure on the
So-
Waverly Avenue Bridge. There's no infrastructure on the Center Avenue, that footbridge. This is the Waverly Avenue Bridge.
you have that footbridge,
Right.
but you have gates, you have a plethora of gates, you have like
Right, right.
at least
There's a lot of stuff.
20 feet of.
How, I'm sorry, is a footbridge utilized on a daily basis?
I
Do
see
kids
people
use
going
it,
over.
using it
They
to go
have-
to school?
Well, Still that cross was- guard there. They cross there without any crossing guard or anything, but
I'm just asking, do the kids use it going to school? Because if they're going to high school,
But
you know-
Leilani, they do use it, but it's going to go away. At all costs, it's leaving. You have Bub Walker Park where you can move
Walk
the
around.
crossing guard
safer.
and they can come through a walking path
It's actually
and they
safer.
can walk to Mamaroneck Avenue School down Grand Street, cross over Old White Plains Road and go to school rather than having to cut through where you have an absorbent amount of traffic on Waverly and Center.
Yeah, it would
And you're
be
gonna be
safer.
walking through a construction area. That's what we failed to do as a community culture and start moving over. You are eventually gonna end up having to be here anyway, cutting through Bub Walker Park. So let's start now.
So either they cut through regardless, say the footbridge is taken away. The other accesses to get to the other side is through Bub Walker or, it's gonna be or through Hoyt.
Or will the Waverly Avenue?
And the
Waverly
Waverly Avenue Bridge have sidewalks?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so but when the Waverly Avenue Bridge is under construction, the other the only, not the only access, but the easiest access, because Hoyt is a little farther away, would be Bub Walker Park.
And it's safer.
definitely safer. No doubt about it.
Okay,
So-
that's all, that's
yeah.
my question,
So that's.
because I
that's-
just want to know about the people who use it.
It's a good question.
Is it gonna affect them greatly? Is it gonna affect our kids in the, because I know I did a lot of cut throughs that I possibly shouldn't have during, when I was young. But
My way to
how does
school,
it affect the people?
my way to school, because I lived on Washington Street,
Mhm.
I walked through Bub Walker Park. I cut through what is Majestic Kitchen, and I cut down Center, up Rockland to the high school.
Got it. Got it. Done, next.
Can I say
So-
something about the bridge?
Sidewalks on
So-
Fennel are lacking pretty significantly, so that's something to consider at some point.
Yeah.
Obviously not something that we're
That's
worried about here,
traffic.
but.
Don't talk about traffic here,
You're talking about sandbags, to deploy sandbags.
Yeah.
I shared it with Leilani a while ago. If we did research and you found other diverting ways to divert water, you can get there, heavy duty plastic, retractable walls that you pull out to push water into a sewer. Hoboken is using them, Switzerland is using them, every flood area in the world. To have our DPW throwing sandbags out when we can purchase items that we're gonna use consistently, sad to say. You know what I mean? Maybe it's something we need to look into, but similar of,
Right, yeah, I'm very familiar. Because
You know?
those things you fill it with water, they expand.
but there's also, you remember we shared that a long time ago? It was like a blue wall and it was retractable and it was metal, so it kind of skirted up almost like,
They have tons of stuff.
And then you
Innovative
pull it
flood-
out and-
Innovative flood barriers.
yeah, and it's like,
Which
Mamaroneck- movable.
Mamaroneck should be up on all of that.
and that's what disappoints me, 2 years out, 4 months away from Ida, 56 years of flooding to my knowledge. We have nothing in place purchased.
Can I say something? I think sometimes when we come to these meetings, right, we're not following up on the things that we should be following up on. We come up with a new idea, that new focus every single meeting, and we don't necessarily, some of the things, yes. But there are real tangible things that we can do as a group to then push it forward to the board and then we get caught up. And I get it, why we get caught up, because something new comes into the community, a new rainstorm comes in, and then we start focusing on something else. We have been talking about stuff like barriers or something for a minute. If we hone in on something and really bring that ask, really thinking about which one, is it gonna be sandbags or is it gonna be this cage? Bring it to the board. Like if you haven't noticed, pretty much all the things that you guys have kind of been asking for, we've been trying to get it done. So let's come up with something tangible, get and actually solidify it, bring it to the board, so we can do it that way. So that we don't have to just keep talking about it. You understand what I'm saying? I don't want to keep talking about it.
Well, I can't afford to keep talking about it.
No, I know
on a
we can't
personal
afford,
basis.
there's so many reasons why nobody can afford to keep talking about it. So
All right, look, can we do this?
having something
Let's go back
tangible.
to, can you just clarify? You're gonna ask,
My ask,
so
based
is it, but is
upon,
it you asking or is it the flood committee asking?
well, that
We have
again,
to ask
We
through
have-
Leilani.
She has to ask.
but you
Well, she has to
also
ask
But
for
we
raise your ask.
generally make it, if we wanna
Yeah,
ask something, we make a
resolution.
motion sometime,
Right.
right? So are we doing a motion here?
I
Or
don't
are we
know.
doing an ask?
Do we need to? Is that required?
It's,
I have it written down. So if you guys want to
I'm
make
gonna
it formal,
suggest,
formal.
you are our elected
liaison,
official,
mhm.
you're the liaison. I trust that you're gonna be able to communicate this major concern that residents and the board committee has. If by the next time we reconvene, if it's not even addressed, then we need to push with a resolution saying, no, we're not, we want. We don't look asking, we want.
I don't
I think
think we
we're
need
past that.
I don't think we need a
I'm just saying,
formal,
that's what-
I don't
It's-
think I'm sorry.
I agree, no, I know what you're gonna say.
We don't need a formal resolution and everything to ask if the footbridge can be taken out during the process.
I was just,
She's a big girl, she can ask
oh,
that.
thanks.
I mean, no, I mean, it's something simple. We don't need to have an official thing, and she has it written down. We trust that you're gonna ask that question.
Thank you for
So,
trusting me.
I get it.
But
I
just to reiterate, we're asking for the footbridge to be handled alongside with when the Waverly Avenue
case.
bridge is going up.
I mean, we might want it afterwards, so they could use the Waverly Avenue Bridge as to go to cross the river. I mean, while it's getting done, while the bridge is being redone, they might want to be able to use the footbridge.
So that's what Dan was saying. That's what actually is in the notes. Like, that's the reason why to keep it for right now.
Who's they? When you say
Not
they?
that damn.
I mean,
So
yeah.
This is what blows my mind as a resident, speaking as a resident, speaking at somebody who has flooded exponentially, 14 feet of water. Honestly, I don't even know how best to say this diplomatically. Who are we servicing here? The people who have to get over that bridge, or the 600 houses and businesses that are being affected by
I'm
that
saying
bridge?
literally the day after. The day after the.
Yeah, but we're
Yeah, but
talking
it's
another
affecting
year
us
of
now.
It
flooding.
does take time. What they're saying is like,
We're out of
takes time.
time.
It takes time for them to fix the bridge, and they rather have it done simultaneously. Correct?
We're out
Yeah,
of
but it's
time.
not- Here's what we were saying, and the reason we said it, Bud Walker Park, they have another avenue.
I understand.
It's not like we're closing off anywhere that no one can get by anymore. All they have to do is walk 100 more yards and they can cross.
Or you're not asking to go down Hoyt, which is gonna be busy enough as it is. with the
Right.
Waverly
Bud
Avenue.
Walker Park is not,
Paved walking path.
listen, at this stage, we're all frustrated, and it can't be just about convenience so somebody can use the bridge. They have another access to get across. It's not like we're cutting off their way across.
we're taking away one, but there's still another one to get. That
We're taking
doesn't
away
affect
something that's
us
impeding
with the
water
flood.
and forcing it into our area.
Look, let's see what they come back with, and then we can, we're arguing something that we don't know at
Okay,
this
but I'm
point, so.
disagreeing with the way we're moving forward here, because to me, after this storm, from what I saw,
Yeah.
if you don't get rid of the footbridge, put some type of barrier by the Marble Mystery Oil, get rid of the dog park by the Mason, and clean out the sheldrake from the Mariner Avenue Bridge back, you're not gonna solve the change, what appears to be a change in flood pattern. So to me, the ask that I think we should ask, and I'm happy to do a motion.
Okay.
Is that okay, Mamaroneck? From what we see of the April and May floods, this should be a focus, a now focus.
And that's why,
And not go
we're here.
one at a time. Say, look, if we did this, we're gonna make an impact on flooding, not only for Washingtonville, but for the flats also.
Can I ask you a
It's
question?
running down the
Wait,
railroad.
Tony, let me ask you a question though, because a lot of times we do that. And what happens is it dilutes what it is that we're trying to do. And I understand all these are important elements, but my point is, if we ask for boom, 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 it gets diluted in a sense of, I mean, my hope is that we're able to put all this together and it's able to be entertained collectively at the same time. You follow what I'm saying? Sometimes when you put too many
I
things
know
in a basket, then
Right,
it's,
but
it's
to
like,
me, but we're the flood committee, right? And to me, to make a recommendation, there's 5 things that need to be done. We're gonna ask for one at a time, and they're gonna look at one at a time. To me, if I was looking at them, I'd say, why couldn't these guys come up with the 5 things?
because what
and put it
happens
in
is
a
it gets
memo?
diluted and nothing happens.
Can I just say something? The reason we're here as a guest, and we appreciate it. My heart was in my throat again. And I'm not alone. There's a lot of people. Why can't we ask for the 4 or 5 things that are gonna help in our areas from flooding again? We had that one rain a couple of weeks ago, and we were getting water.
I'm not, wait, let me make one thing very clear. I'm not saying we shouldn't ask for it. We can ask for 20,000 things or 4 things. I'm just saying, rather than put it all, we want this is all at the same time. What I'm asking is, this is one issue that can be addressed, boom. The issue with the sandbags or a wall, that's another item, boom. I just sometimes, and we've done this for many, many years, when you have a whole list of things on one page, it just never gets done. So you have one thought, boom, here's the bridge, here's the wall, here's
Sandbags.
All right,
sandbags.
so hang on, Andrew.
Yeah.
I think that to do either the one thing or the 5 things, the village is gonna probably need to either have their engineer look at it or another
Sure.
engineer, right? So to me, maybe what we should be saying is, okay, looks like there's a change in the flood pattern. These might be the things. Could we please have the engineer, SLR, whatever, Gino, look at this and evaluate it?
You know what that speech sounds like? I'm sorry. I've been hearing this since the 70s, man. And I'm sorry, I'm no disrespect to anyone. It's just, we're so tired. This is all we ever hear. All the engineer has to do is it, and nothing has gotten done. Nothing. Not one thing has gotten done yet.
Some of the things they were gonna do after 2007, it's 15, 16 years later.
It's time is up, and you know what's gonna happen? This is a liability. And I think the residents is gonna start getting fed up with the drag and drop and the conversation. The bridge is scheduled to be taken out by the Army Corps. It's really not an engineer need. You borrow their plan, you see what needs to be done, and you hit the ground running. This is where we're at. You're gonna have a community of residents suing the village for not moving in action as we're going into hurricane season.
All right, so let's do this.
You know what I mean? My fear is it's gonna happen again because water finds its way. I had 8 to 14 feet. The next time it's gonna be worse. It's not gonna get better. And I have to say, Jerry's doing a phenomenal job. Jerry's moving and grooving, but his hands are tied. He can only go so far. That's why as a community, we have to stop with the conversation now and get going because we're feeling it. We're flooding again. If I didn't stay there for 8.5 hours vacuuming my basement, I would have had 6 inches or more of water.
What we just fixed.
Right.
All right, so,
But
but
we're not
Laura, so
alone.
what I'm saying is, I was there, I saw it, you were there, you saw it. And what I'm saying is, if you don't address those 5 things that I just mentioned, you're gonna do one, and the water's gonna back up. And so I'm not saying push the ball down the road at all. I'm saying,
So then what, officially make a resolution, the 5 things, and we give it to her, and we do it officially.
I think,
Yeah, I'm
may I think, and I agree
we're
with
gonna have
Andrew.
one meeting, okay, please?
I agree with Andrew that things get diluted. We ask for the 4 or 5 things, and we say this one is priority, number 1, 2, 3,
I don't.
and so on.
Okay,
Some of those require capital investments. Some are gonna have discussions as to whether we're gonna lose funding because we're doing it on our own and not through the Army Corps. Others are gonna require engineering studies because the law requires it, because there are environmental laws that affect it. And some of them, like possibly closing the dog walk, would be a snap of the fingers if we don't get sued by whoever put it up, kind of thing. But my point here, Tony, is that our job is to give advice to the board. And we do that not by asking nice questions or say, we're gonna talk to this person or that person about it. We do it by resolutions that are voted by the members that Leilani takes to the board as an official action of this committee. And I think that whether it's 3 or 5, but I think that's got to be the principle. We make a decision, we pass a resolution, and we send it to the board. Then it's incumbent upon them to take what the appropriate action.
okay, so we have very different opinions here at the moment. So we have, okay, I heard you. Patty, where's your head at?
I think the bridge has to come out. And if the other items are going to impede that from happening because it's too much for people to get their head around, then it should be separate. So why not do, I think Dave had a good idea, or I'm sorry, what else? You can put them all in one resolution, but this is the one thing that has to be done. This is our absolute ask. This has to be done. The other 3 without it are nothing either. Let's do the big thing that's really right in the heart of where these people live. You want to put the sandbags, I agree with what maybe, what you're saying, but that's not where the residents are backing up to. It may eventually, but I think that bridge alone will help so much.
See, I disagree with that.
Well,
I'm
that's
just
why
saying, because if you don't do the 5 things, the minute you take the bridge
But that's
out.
only your
Wait,
opinion.
wait,
I know.
with all due respect, it's 45 minutes. We're saying the same thing. I'm
Right.
saying nothing different than what we're all saying. Look, these are all important things.
Right.
It's just a matter of how we give it to our liaison so that it's looked at. I'm just simply saying, maybe we'd have 5 resolutions. Boom, here's our bridge. Here's the sandbags. Here's, forgetting what, the dog park. Let's just boom, boom, boom. And we pass it. There's 5. I'll do a resolution right now. Let me make a motion. 5 resolutions for exactly what everyone's saying in here. Bring it back
How
to the
about one
board.
resolution with 5 points?
Whatever, it's just.
I mean,
That's
I mean, also,
a
it's gonna be-
point.
See,
Just
well, you
keep
haven't
it simple.
spoken up.
Hopefully, there's gonna be several things we talk about outside these 5 points, which will all be on flood mitigation. Other things, we have a lot of stuff to get to, so we might wind up with 10 things. I think that we just provide them all. These are the
And see,
10
the
things
problem is
that,
if you add it all on. they're gonna
But these
look-
are the
they're gonna look
different
at this, and
things.
It's just gonna be
but
like.
there are different things that we're gonna talk about today, that are gonna be outside even this. So, and all these things also should be given to the board notoriety.
Okay, I don't want
So
to
let me do this.
No, hold on.
Eric has something to say.
I would like to just make a suggestion. I hear what you're saying, but I think if you don't submit them all together as one thing, then I'm on a board. And I know that when we receive suggestions for our committees that are, oh, we want this, and oh, we want this, and oh, we want this, as a bunch of separate things, they tend to get lost and it ends up being a lot for us to keep track of. So I'd like to suggest including all of those in one thing, as a result of this meeting, these are the things that we'd like you to look at, and then just make sure you track them, because if you don't track them, that's as a committee, because you're the ones who are interested in this happening. If you don't track and follow up with the board, then the board is going to forget, or the board is going to find other things that are important also.
Mhm.
So it's really, it's on you guys to make sure that you're following up with the board rather than the board following up with you.
Which they do. They do, and that's why we
Okay.
have this agenda. And a lot of the stuff that is stated in the agenda is a lot of follow-up from whether it was a study, which studies have been done, whether it's the ACE project or the dam reservoir stuff that has to keep going back and forth from state to village, whatever. So that's the follow-up that I give back. But they do, as a board, I want to, say that you guys do follow up with. But there should be, if there's additional asks, there's always going to be additional asks because we come up with just different
Okay,
things.
so I'd like to suggest that
But they
we
do that.
put together a motion that has the 5 points in it, and that we can stress that they're all important. Could you please review them all and get back to us with the timing and answers? I can draft it up, I'll circulate it to more you guys, so you can comment on it, and I'll wait for all your comments, and then once I get your comments, I'll send it out. So
And give
that's,
them a deadline. It's okay to give them a deadline. You have to wait for, you don't have to ask them
well,
to wait for a
David's pretty
response.
good, I have to say.
You know,
I really,
because we had water in our basement too.
I-
We all did,
they-
you know, it's like.
Well, all right, so let me finish with my motion. So, and who's in favor of doing a motion with the 5 points? Dave,
I'm in favor of just moving this along.
hang on.
Yeah, right,
Patty?
if we have to.
Patty?
If that's what's gonna get it moving, fine, I think we're
All right.
just
Yeah, no, I'm
talking
fine.
this
That's
to death at this
All right.
point.
As
So-
long as we specify, this is priority number 1, number 2, number 3.
Okay, so all right, so we're gonna do a motion. I'll send a motion around to everybody. You guys can comment on it. And then also, okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Now that that subject's ended, how is the Zoom meeting working? Because I'm getting a complaint that it's muffled and garbled. Where's the sound coming from us? Where's the microphone? Does anybody know? Well, the woman who was in here starting it up for you, how did she start it?
Danielle
paying
wouldn't
no
know.
attention.
She wouldn't have
I
known. That's
called
like,
Sally,
it's,
Sally got me linked in.
If you.
Is there a
if you check-
laptop involved?
no,
No, go to Zoom again and it'll go to the speakers or.
that's what I was
Go to
looking for,
more,
but it no.
No idea where it is, but it's,
go over to more at the bottom, right there.
the sound is terrible, that's what I'm being told. It sounds like someone is rubbing the mic.
Hang on. So usually you go
So
here.
let's start rubbing around to see where it's at.
Let's
Usually
tap
there'd be
it.
like a
Here,
speaker
well,
on the.
Yeah, open up these little things to see if it's in there, something. No,
I mean, maybe to make this lower.
no, but maybe,
The mic's in the camera.
no, the mic's not in the camera.
This your cell phone?
Okay, thank you.
I don't know. Okay.
I wouldn't know.
Oh, well.
That's just a practice.
By the way, while they're trying to figure out the
Yeah.
tech with the sidewalks at Fenimore, I'm giving my information, contact me.
I
Because
opened my
I'm
mouth.
not worried about it. No, like, literally, that is.
So.
Wait,
Is that,
during- Wait, oh, there it is, up there.
Oh.
She said it sounds.
oh, well, look at that.
Well, green lights are on.
Hey, you're young. Do you know where,
Can-
so where does the speaker come from?
That looks like the speaker for the room. Is the,
That's my son.
does a
You can see
person,
that.
can the person hear us like well now?
Can you call them? and-
No, they said it sounds warped.
It is 45 minutes into our conversation, we could sound a little warped.
Somebody.
Warm here.
Really lying.
Can you see the participants? Because somebody's raising
Does
their
it sound any
hand.
better?
Go to participants, go to
Wait,
participants.
I can tell you what, look, when you
Before you
move,
hung up.
it's like
Right
delayed.
No, click the whole thing, participants,
There they
I
go.
don't know. but we
and
think we
then
know
go to
what it is.
attendees,
Goodbye. Text me.
right there, click attendees. And who's raising their hand?
Hang up to answer my call.
Yeah.
Oh, one.
basement.
But the river overtopped on the
The river
two ends.
overtopped that house
Sounds
on
okay now,
and
just everyone.
The other side of top is a very.
It's,
Like first.
It's getting better.
I got a report, it sounds okay now, but every once in a
Sorry.
while.
We were all waiting.
All right, we'll just, you know,
Either end of the street.
well, it's your wife.
And I was like, the river was like right there. We all moved our cars.
Okay, so Jared says he hears us fine.
Yeah, I got a
Wow.
good, I got a good sound. thing.
Okay, so then let's continue,
Okay,
all right?
Thank you.
okay.
Just be very clear in your speech.
Okay.
Thank you.
What are we up to?
Oh,
we're
all right,
doing.
B, item B.
Oh, we done skipped.
So let's talk, let's just go, we had spoken a lot about code. So I think that so this is 5A. I think with the code, improving the code to reduce flooding, the board had agreed to discuss that, correct, Alani?
Say it again, honey.
All right, we've been discussing getting code
Yes.
changes to improve stormwater
So-
control.
I had a meeting with, I know. I had a meeting with Greg, who was a planner, and Carolina, I think about 2 weeks ago. It definitely wasn't last week, or maybe last week. And to ask them, what can we do currently to improve our policies regarding anything with development and how it affects individuals in flood zones or just the village in general. And right now, they said they are, they're pretty happy or good with what we have. There's some things that we can tighten up on, and those are the things we're gonna be working on and discussing in depth. Yeah, I know. Okay. It may not.
Well, okay, but I'm pretty sure, well, I think at one point, there was discussion that the board was gonna put it on their work session and discuss it. So do you know if that happened?
No,
No.
no, because
No,
Tom,
we didn't, or-
because Tom wasn't present, and that was his item for the agenda, so he wasn't present, so.
No, I think that was Nora's item.
No, it was Tom's,
Okay.
the
All right,
resolution.
so can you ask?
I will
whether-
follow up on the next work session if it's gonna be on the work
Right,
session for
okay,
the, for June 12th.
But let's cut to the chase,
Let's cut.
because I want to request a resolution for this particular item. So we might as well not beat around the bush, because I have a list of things that have to get done for this particular item. And they seem to think it's okay, but it's not okay. The code.
They,
Who's they?
Well, Carolina and Greg.
No, whoa.
Is that what you said?
No, I said there's things that need to be tightened up,
Okay.
right? And that's, we're gonna continue to discuss that. So we'll just, they were, it was okay, but there's still things that we can tighten up on.
Okay.
Were they open to the list of stuff that we gave you to have those part of the things that changed?
We still have to do more discussion because the meeting ended up getting cut short.
Okay. I mean.
I don't think we gave them the
So it's
list though.
No, I think I did.
Yeah,
I
we
think
gave,
we did,
I
yeah.
think you emailed and I emailed the list.
Oh,
of things we
okay.
talked about.
So
Is there
and
a
that's
particular
why,
list? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interject, but what list just?
I think this was
Okay.
a list that was everybody was included,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was one of the many emails, but that's why I called the meeting with them. And it took a while because either I was on vacation or everybody was busy, and the planning or the department was also being remodeled. So a lot of things were moved around. So we're still in discussion and we're
Okay.
still having conversations about it.
Yeah, but do we specifically give them a specific list and not an email? No, we didn't. Like, we didn't have this in a resolution.
We did not.
So this needs to be official, because these are huge things. We're talking about what happened 3-4 weeks ago where we got flooded, Plaza got flooded.
I mean,
And the
we
main
were
reason-
talking about code change.
Yeah, the code change, not code changes,
Specific.
additional codes. Because the reason Plaza got flooded was the mason. let's call a spade a spade. It's the mason.
Well, I think it was
It's
five, it
not
was the five
just-
items that I mentioned before, but the Masons.
We
one of them.
walked with the SLR
Transfer
guy.
center.
We walked with the SLR guy.
Private.
And he even specifically talked about the shelving, that they do shelving and all of this other stuff. And I said to him, the Mason raised its grade and became one big dam. That's our Mamaroneck Dam now. It's the Mason on the Sheldrake. And unless we curb these building projects, we are gonna spend all of this money for the ACE, possibly a new dam, possibly a new reservoir, possibly spend a couple $100 million, and we're gonna let these guys just come in and build whatever they want to build, which is not the right way. 500-year flood systems, roof detention systems, bioswales, no raising of the grades.
All right, so what do we want?
So there's a whole list of things. There's 8 things that I need, that I think should be put on the list officially as a resolution.
So let's start. Members, do we want a resolution to ask the board to review improving the code, changing the code to improve, tighten up stormwater regulations? So that's my question. So Patty, yes or no? to
Yes.
That resolution.
Yes,
Bernie,
to
yes,
resolution.
right?
Yes.
Steve, yes. Elsa,
Yes.
yes. Andrew?
Yes, but
You're the button
Again.
tonight.
no, I am, because in this situation in the industrial area where it's 98% already impervious, anything that someone were to do to develop should be incentivized so the water doesn't just end up in the Sheldrake or on Waverly or Center. It should be able to be maintained on the roof, like you made reference to, or some other devices. Incentivize us to take away the freaking parking lots. Give me a reason to put $1 into my property so I'm able to improve what's down there.
You're not gonna
Then
get
what-
flooded
okay, so
anymore.
let me
That's
ask
your
you something.
incentive.
Then what are examples of incentives that you or the industrial area would need?
Whether, first of all, whether it's tax incentive, because again, no one right now down there, other than 15 homes live, it's businesses that either been shuttered or struggling to stay ahead, whether it's with COVID or because of flood loss. Incentivize, okay? When you go to zoning, when you go to planning, when you go to HGCM or whatever committee, don't beat the crap out of me for 5 years to do something that will be an improvement to the community, that will provide jobs, okay? That will provide vitality to the fabric of this community, okay? I'm so sick and tired of people saying, you can't do that there because you're gonna hurt. No, you're not gonna hurt. You can't do any worse than we are now. We were 1 flood away from the entire industrial area being worth 0, which means that, wait, let me finish, okay? Sorry, no, okay?
Okay.
So when we start talking about flood and permitting and development, the industrial area is not like the rest of the community. Sorry, we're not R20, we're not R10, we're not pervious. You're not taking an area that's grass and putting cement over it. We're 98% already cement. So we need to do what we can to incentivize to make improvements, but at the same time, don't just put the water and deflect it back in the street. Hold on to it. I can't do that unless we have obviously a manner to do so.
Got it. Totally understand, feel your passion.
Yeah,
What
thank
I'm
you.
asking for is that if the industrial committee, and I know that they're going back to reforming that,
Right.
do you have bullet points of incentives that you're looking for? Because you gave me maybe 1 or 2,
Right.
but like, give me, just like we're asking a list of this stuff, do you have us like a so that we can, like, ideas we can go by?
Absolutely,
Please,
and I
just
would
send that.
love to do exactly this. This is not the industrial meeting, this is a flood
Get
mitigation, but
it?
I want you to understand that I'm 100% about flood mitigation and having thoughtful development. But when you, as I said, that example I had, this table is impervious. I pour water on it, it's gonna pour. But if I can find a way to do this, that's
Okay,
a
don't
great
waste the
sign.
plate, don't waste the.
I'm wasting it. Look, oh,
Can
look
try
at
it.
that. Look.
Okay,
See?
so can I speak?
Yes.
Okay.
Plate
So here's,
waste.
you,
I'm taking a hold, by the
Can
way.
I say something first, Tony?
let me
Okay.
just, hang on, if I don't mind. So I'm thinking that our resolution have several parts to it, right? The first part is have the board please review stormwater codes and develop and tighten codes, right? That's number one. Two, review and develop stormwater, what was your word, initiatives? Stormwater
Incentives.
stormwater mitigation incentive programs, because that happens all over the world.
Sure does.
Right?
But that should be not just for the industrial.
Well, it should be for
area, but
everybody,
the
yeah.
residential
Agreed.
as well.
This general,
I think
agreed.
you should put
Agreed.
industrial and residential.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
I'm gonna put that for the whole thing. Because any parking lot you can do, we did it at the college, we put these biospills and it made it, we're not connected to the sewer at all, not one drop of water goes to the sewer, it works.
Well, it works a lot. Look at Louisiana. How come all these places that flood? Soon as they get flooded, they come up with a system that works. My married is 50 years later, we haven't done it.
Because we don't do anything.
Okay,
That's
so
all.
the resolution is gonna say tighten up the codes, develop incentives, I'll let you talk in a minute. Do we want any other major bullet points in this resolution?
I mean, there's the whole thing about the new hunter lot zoning law. That, and the issues around that.
Okay, is that part of this? or
I don't know if
this
it's part of that, but it is another regulation, but this just passed. This is like, the ink is just drying now on this.
Again, inks may dry, but they can be rewritten.
I mean, I have the choices, thoughts of choices that we can make on that. Maybe that's for another part of the discussion, but this is something we really should address.
So
As a resident, I would have to agree with that because we're at the bottom of the fishbowl and flooding should be first. If you don't fix flooding, you can't incorporate housing, old or new, we can't sustain. We have to have a code that's going to cover the whole entire village and everybody needs to be flood compliant at some level because either way, the water is going to come to the flats or it's going to go to the sound. So you can't piecemeal your building to appease one place because it's only going to move to the other.
But you also don't need a macro approach. Within that code, you can make exceptions.
Right,
example,
that's what I
for-
said, you
yeah,
can make it at
exactly, right,
different
right, right.
levels.
So,
But
right.
all with the same concept of it, everybody
Right.
retaining their own
Absolutely.
water. Instead of it being
Yes.
flood
yes.
compliant and it running off, everybody needs to hold on to their own in one way or another. Whether it's a dry well, or whether it's a bioswale, whether it's roof retention, every new build.
Detach.
And new
Yeah.
build, and we're just talking about new build, we're not even talking about the current residents.
The current residents, we need incentives. Everybody in the flats should, across the board, have had in place already dry wells. We could have held back 2 days of rain.
Even a stupid 55-gallon rain barrel, if you empty it out, it's a minor thing. It
But
can work.
we're gonna digress, but if you have $250,000 and you're dispersing that to residents and they're able to bite off that to raise their houses, that's an impossibility. I have 2 incomes in my house. It's an impossibility for me to fathom to think about raising my house at $250,000 or $280,000. But if you divided that money up and you incentivized and you had people put in dry wells, everybody would be somehow holding up a barrier back. So in a situation like what occurred 2 weeks ago, the water running down Madison Street would have went into their dry wells. The rain stopped, it would have held. But we're not in place. We're not thinking out of the box. We're just all over scattered and we're suffering.
Well, just so you know, there was a program that was just passed that was that's going to be cash grants from the village to people who apply
For what?
for any type of mitigation practices.
And what program is that?
It hasn't been implemented yet.
We're
but it was
in-
passed.
Was that the one that was something like $30,000
There
or
was
something?
That's the one that's
It's
geared
really
towards
not,
low
it's
income
nothing when you.
individuals.
No.
We're getting
Yeah,
off,
we're
we're getting off track
All
here.
right,
This is a simple thing.
The motion. So we're back to the basic
This is a
motion
simple
having
thing.
improve the code, tighten up the code, incentivize
Hold on, it's
things.
not,
What else do you want?
but it's not improving the code. The codes are not. Well, there's one code that's there. That's the 100. I'm not saying the industrial area shouldn't build. I think they should build because they're gonna make only an improvement if they build it. But the H&H guy for GHD, who studied the dam, sat at the podium and said that a 100-year storm happens every 7 years. So a 7-year insurance policy that they have in place right now is not good enough. Okay, these codes are not good enough. A 7-year insurance policy is not the future of Mamaroneck. It's just not. We need to go 500-year, or if we're going to do 100-year, if we're going to keep the storm system, because it's difficult for some of the engineers to figure out a 500-year storm system on their software because it just doesn't exist. So they have to kind of make it up. But if we do 100-year detention system on the roof, if we do permeable parking lots like they're doing at Beach Point, and they have these, which we talked about, 3 feet of gravel,
That's what I'm talking about.
okay?
That's
3 feet
exactly
of
what-
gravel underneath the permeable blacktop, and it becomes one big dry well, and none of your water goes off of your property. And the incentive is, build it, Andrew, that's great. You're not gonna get flooded anymore, because if everyone around us does the same thing, and if we build up the industrial area where we're retaining the water and detaining it before it goes into the rivers and inundates the
That's
rivers,
exactly
the
what-
rivers will drain, the rivers won't back up, and we won't get
You're
flooded
not
anymore.
contributing, you're not
Yes,
exacerbating.
we're not contributing. So it's a cut and dry thing. We do 500-year storm systems if it's possible for the software. We do 100 or 500-year roof detention systems.
Okay.
I mean, I think what we need, I mean, both of us kind of came up with
Yes.
things, and I think those should be as like, hey, this is some of the stuff the committee came up with, and we could list them, and
Okay.
then those could maybe be
So-
studied.
I want to, so we're gonna make a motion. It's gonna talk about stormwater codes and incentive programs for water retention and detention. I will circulate it to everybody if you guys approve, and then you can add your bullet points, and I'll say, here are some of the initial suggestions, and I'll send it back to everybody.
And
So do
please
I have
send
a-
it-
But it has to be specific things, because
We're gonna put it in.
it's a building code where it has to be very
Right.
specific on what
Please
you have
send
to
that
do.
as soon as possible so that when we do talk about it, when it's gonna be on the agenda for June 12th, that I can bring those up in that discussion.
All right,
So
so
what do
do
you
I
mean
have,
by-
do I have
so
a
we know.
vote? Do I have a motion
Before-
to write this,
That way,
this motion on codes and incentives? Yes, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I will send it out tomorrow. I'll
Please
give you a time
before June
deadline.
7th.
guys, before they.
I just had a question for you. You got what that list that I said, that I sent you?
I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, but please don't sue me.
I'll send
because
it to you again.
Thank you.
Okay,
Blessings.
all
Can
right.
you copy this?
I think I sent it to
I'll just
everyone,
recopy
where I
it.
said, here's my suggestion, if anyone has a
Yeah,
suggestion.
I said something nobody really could use.
Was
Yeah.
that the last email?
Well,
This was different. This was the
No,
one with
it's
the,
recently, right?
mine was the one with all the
Yeah.
specific code
Yeah,
numbers
well,
and
yeah.
the suggestions and
Please
changes.
send it.
Can I say one thing
All right, so the resolution passed. Okay.
Yes.
about the code? What about all the stuff that's on Sheldrake, when we took a walk, Star Police and all those places have all that stuff right on the brook. The new company that's doing the construction, they're fixing their equipment with oil, right, I mean, it's right on the brook. I mean, that should be a.
yeah, but Jimmy, that's more of a code enforcement. This is what we're trying to do, is trying to strengthen.
Well, this is.
That's
Stormwater
existing,
management.
but I hear
But
what
I'm
you're saying.
talking about
That's
I'm talking about the flood.
I agree with you.
problem.
Where,
Yeah,
That
Because
wall,
that's,
the walls are
that gets,
ready to cave in.
that gets, well, not only with the wall cave in, but that debris, the equipment goes into the
Into
river,
the water.
where is
It's-
this?
right? If you go to 95, when you get off the exit,
Oh,
you
the,
look right to the right, all the properties, the
All-
stuff that is being kept in the back, they're not
It's been
secure,
flooded,
there's not in
flooded over.
cages, which means that if a flood comes, it's all gonna go into the
Trailer,
river. and
trailer boxes, I mean.
Well,
it's-
that's a.
You
code
have, what you
enforcement.
have, what
That's
you
a
have
code
is
I
this.
don't know.
311
Laura,
Waverly
just-
Avenue.
Laura, just for a second, I don't think it is in the code that they have to have those items secure. I
Oh,
really
okay,
don't think.
okay. Oh,
And
I
think
see what
that's
you're
why-
saying.
But there,
Okay, I
there is
understand what
there
you're
is
saying.
something in the FEMA floodplain law that states there should be a 50-foot buffer.
When you
We've
get
had,
off
and if you, listen, you've walked with me.
Fenimore Road.
You've
oh, we're
walked,
talking about the Fenor,
you've walked and you've seen
Yes,
the condition of the brook.
yes.
Since Ida struck, and a construction company moved into 311 Waverly.
Okay.
It is putting sediment and debris into the brook. So you have,
Behind
you
the salt
have,
shed.
it's behind the salt shed.
It's along that.
all along the river, you have Star Police junk and junked cars like a junkyard, right, literally on the brook. And the water rises, it goes into the vehicles, pulls back in again. It's a repetitive motion. There's
No,
wood.
okay, that's a good point. That's a good point.
But
But that's
this-
putting it in the bin.
That's like making the dam
Okay, so
itself.
And actually, you
So
were
put
onto
that in.
something, but see, you were onto something about that 2 years ago, talking about storage bins that were.
There are
that could be
3 of them
floated-
over there.
wait, wait. Float, you know, yeah.
There's
Yeah, but
still
the-
3 of them, but that's not even it. There's
But
3
it
of
can't
them.
be a metal bin where
These
it
are
floats
free-
into the river.
No, these
though.
are, I know, of course not, but I mean, my point is, well, no, but in Harrison, for example, now they have provisions that you have to establish that it would survive a 100-year, 250, 500-year storm. That it won't get, it's locked into the ground.
Oh, it's locked in.
Yes.
What
Very
the
different.
problem is, you're gonna have the Army Corps coming in to widen our brooks and
Well, that's. a
widen
whole
our
nother-
streams. And you have, what is happening is that area is blind eye. It is out there, you can see it, it should be addressed.
So
It's
when,
going
wait,
to
wait, so when
cause-
the resolution gets circulated, Stephen Byrne, I know exactly what you're saying. We need to put that in there in terms of the free item, the items that are not secure, that could
Yeah.
easily be, it's,
Yeah.
and most of
Yeah,
it,
no,
quite
yeah,
frankly,
yeah, okay.
it's garbage. It's not.
It's garbage.
These aren't
Yeah,
items
it's
that are
wood.
being.
We have a
Okay,
rodent
Tony, have we
infestation
put any
issue.
kind of floater issue, I mean, floater
Yes, you
resolution? in the
circulated
past?
2 years ago, Stephen.
All right,
Oh,
has
you
it been
did.
since then? I mean.
Yeah, okay.
You know, we have a rat and rodent issue on top of it. We have the tree company with, I can't tell you how many cords of rotten wood
Yeah, that's gotta
are
be.
been piled there for weeks
Okay.
and months. And, you know, this is what our village should be doing. They should have boots on the ground, walking around 3 days after Ida, 4 days after Ida. You have, you know, you have Vasco who was flooded and the Mr. Softy truck was flooded and it's still sitting there 2 years later. Like, these are codes that not are just tight. They're loose. They're not addressed.
They're not enforced.
So let's put that, so under the code one, let's say at enforcement.
Yes.
Does that sound all right?
Agreed.
And emergency coding for the flood zone. We're a flood zone. Certain things should not be.
They should be allowed, that's why I brought it up, not because it's, they're flood mitigation, we're talking about preventing. So preventing is to get rid of that stuff before it happens.
Right, the
You know?
shipping containers off of White Plains Road, some of the businesses there between Mamaroneck Avenue and Madison.
We're
Right, the
flooded.
back there, there's shipping containers.
And you walk with us today, if you look at the wall,
Oh, my God.
it's ready to cave in, and you know everything on top of it's gonna go in with it. And you're not, and then what happens?
And it's on the books, how many times we've forged.
You think the
An
water
issue
was
and a
high last
complaint.
time, God
It's
forbid that happens.
liability.
And that's why I really think if we get the silt removal, we really gotta get in there and clean that.
Yeah.
That wall, all of that.
You
stuff.
gotta push people back 50 feet no matter
It's
what.
gotta come out.
The Army Corps is not gonna sit here and go, let me not move his junk and I'm gonna just, you know, move around it. Like, we have to get real and be responsible as a village.
All right, so I will so I'm gonna circulate 2 motions. I'll start with the code. Okay.
I make a motion that Bernie has to share that with everybody.
I was just thinking, I was like.
I asked if.
He only asked one person.
Did you bring one donut?
Everybody,
And everybody's
Very
looking at Bernie
co-friendly.
that way.
Oh, it's so good too.
He's actually the guy that usually brings all the Dunkin' Donuts and all these stuff. We broke him.
All right, let's do, all right, let's do 7, application review. So Steve, I know some of these points you wanted to go over, and I really didn't want to change the agenda, but it is included in here. So application review, I really feel that this application review process that FMAC is able to do, and I don't really want to call it a review, it should be an application look at, let's just say for a better word. The problem that I see with it is that, Bernie, you took a good stab at it, Steve, and you've taken a good stab at it. But the process was, I think, not very good to begin with. And I'd like to tighten it up a bit, right? Now, after we spoke about this like 8 months ago, we're supposed to send that application look at to Brittany, right? And then Brittany is supposed to send it to all the committees, right? The problem that I see is that I can write something, Patty can write something, Andrew can write something. How do we, to me, we get conflicting, I might say, you know, let the stormwater flow down Madison Avenue, you know? So I really think these reviews should come before the committee and we should discuss it and then send them.
Rather than unilateral.
Right. And I know that is going to take some more time, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable that we just kind of do it ad hoc. And John, I want your thoughts on it.
I agree with you. We need to have a consistent system in place, because if something goes awry, we're putting the village in a bad position, we're putting ourselves in a bad position. So it should be a systematic policy. That's it, we follow it.
You're reviewing
What do you mean?
applications?
Uniform
Reviewing the building application?
Specific
So
goals,
when
specific
we,
goals.
yes, so when we started this months and months
Yeah.
ago, we were really going to just do a checklist. And the checklist was going to say, okay, the applicant filled out the form, filled out the environmental form, got a land use permit, whatever. And we would just say they either got it or they didn't get it. Right? That was the initial, the way we were going to review it. And we all kind of got into it a little bit, and we started to come up with more suggestions. So I think it's fine that we come up with suggestions. I'm just
I have a
thinking
question,
that this could come back here. Go ahead.
because this is kind of not, it's almost the first time I'm hearing about this committee is reviewing building applications.
Anything that's in the, so this committee, the board, the FMAC requested from the board probably 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
I was not on it at the time.
But
Then,
all right.
right, neither were you. To the board, that we at least get a chance to look at any application in the floodplain. So the board agreed. So then I got on in December and we started to talk about what was the process. The process that we thought at that point was that we, as the members, would look at it from a checklist point of view. Like and I think I know we have a checklist.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the checklist was basically to say, okay,
Well, checklist was the four, it's all forms, all the
right,
forms.
did the applicant at least fill out all the forms? Because from what we were seeing, they weren't filling out basic forms, right? If you don't fill out a form, your application should still be in limbo. Wow,
But-
there's the
But
form.
what happened was, for example, you had some applicants who had an attorney who reached out saying, but wait a second, we want to be heard. And it became a question, do we allow applicants to come in? What if I let Laura come in, but I don't let Patty come in? What happens in that situation? So
That was beyond our.
that's why it's like, whoa, we're getting in somewhere deep.
Yeah, well, you're getting into being a land use
Well,
board,
it's-
Right.
which is
Yeah.
slippery slope.
But I guess from now I understand what you're talking about, but you're talking about now holding it up for the whole group to look at it. So you're going to add a month onto everyone's application?
That was the other concern.
So that was, that's a concern.
Oh, yeah, you wonder why.
But
But also these things take a year to get through anyway. So
Right, that's what
I'm aware,
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the 5-year
What was that?
application.
What did Dave say? Dave said, well, not to hold up the application.
Yeah.
Principle. We have to
To work
move
in-
as quickly as we can. in the
Right,
timeframe.
but if
Work
you're
in
gonna,
it.
everybody's gonna look at it and then you're gonna have a group discussion. We meet once a month.
Well, my view is that's why we have to change the building codes and we have to strengthen the stormwater management. Because let's do it, let's put it black and white to the applicant, so we don't have to worry about
I
it.
totally agree with you.
We don't need to.
We are not.
Let's
we're not
set this,
engineers
let's set
or-
the standard up here, not down here. It's up
Even-
here,
even-
and then we can walk away and say, and feel good about that they're doing their job to prevent us from getting flooded in the future.
And I would think in most villages and towns, it's up to the building department to make sure, or the
Exactly.
forms are.
Yeah.
it hasn't been happening.
I understand that, but
I'm gonna
Yeah.
say one thing though. I
Let
have
these
recently gone and
earn their
found
money.
several different committees and land use, excuse me, and the forms have been tweaked. And there's been a lot more, but like, if you're ducks on a row now, you're not going in. You're
Are
not.
you talking about in the village?
Yeah.
So there's definitely been a.
Because of the new
curve
building
here.
inspector, that's why.
There's a lot, I think that there's a lot of, I think a lot of people are implementing changes, and I think it starts up here and trickle down effect, so.
Definitely, there is a lot of movement. I'm
Yes,
not
in the right direction.
In the right direction. It may not seem, and most times that is not, but there is a lot of movement. And it's a lot of fixing what was not done. And that also takes time. And unfortunately, with this particular subject, time is not on our side. It's just unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. But I don't want to act like really not say that we haven't done anything, because we have. It's just.
All right, so it has been tightened up. So how about we just say this for the moment? Steve, how are you getting the applications to the floodplain, or how are we?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically, Bernadette's giving them to me because she knows how to look for them, so she's.
So she sends them to you.
She sends them to me,
All
yeah.
right, so when you get them, you then send them to all of us?
I definitely could, but I've been basically then writing something up on where I can, and, I think I have circulated with, what the thoughts are. And a lot of them actually have to do with the regulations that we're looking to pass.
Yeah.
For instance, just like use of pervious cement, is not, but, and there is a category where if it could be interpreted that it should be used, but it isn't necessarily a requirement, but it kind of is inherently, if you read the regulation, they should.
So what happens, Steve, if you go to a meeting and you want to express something that, let's say, for example, the members of the land use board and commission didn't raise that question,
Yeah.
or the applicant didn't raise that concern, or someone in the audience, public comment didn't, you step up. Are we stepping up as private citizens? Are we stepping up as private citizens / flood mitigation? Like, how do we?
That's my point.
Well, what I've been doing is I've been just writing a letter to Bernadette and saying, these are the concerns on this property. And she forwards them on to all the appropriate.
So as a resident or as flood mitigation?
Flood mitigation.
Yeah. So again, I'm only speaking, I'm wearing my lawyer hat now for a second. If I'm the attorney for the applicant, I'm gonna want to see what that communication is, because I may want to address that. And if it's not addressed, and if it's made reference to, we're putting ourselves in we need to be consistent. I don't have a problem with what's happening, but let's have a policy, let's have a standard, and let's stand by it. Because if he does something different than Bernie, different than you and I, we're gonna put ourselves in the village in a kind of compromise.
So I would like to say for now, Stephen, when you get that, please circulate it to everybody. I will be on the lookout for it. And even if we have to, I think we all have to opine on it and agree it before we send it back to her.
Now, you're free, I think we're all, as
As
individuals,
we can all
but
send
as
what we
what?
want, but as members of the flood committee, if you're gonna say it, Tony Gelba, FMAC, we have to okay it through this committee.
Well, I've been going to a bunch of meetings and I've been going up there as speaking for myself. I tell them that I'm on the flood
And
committee
I've
and
done
then
the
I
same.
speak for myself. So there's nothing.
but
That's
it
different
only
than what
gives
we're talking
us,
about here.
look, if everyone agrees and you want us to do that, it's different. We should have a stand,
So
that's all.
So let's say, right, and I've done this, I go before the board and I just say, I'm Tony Gelba speaking, not flood chair. So let's just be clear about that. If we can get our act together a little more, I know we all have a lot to do, and we can agree on some of these applications and come up with specific, and then have one of us go as the flood person and put up there. Before Andrew goes, okay, thank you very much.
Wait, so are we
So
gonna go back to, we're gonna be consistent, we're gonna
we're
make.
gonna be more, trying to be more. Before you leave, I'd like to go back, and I have it on here, emergency preparedness. So this is the sandbag, the barrier issue. There's a zillion types of innovative flood control. I asked to start the sandbag program. I got kind of tepid support. Leilani, what do you think? How do we move this ahead to really, that we could take some simple actions, whether it's getting 1,000 sandbags, whether it's looking at these barriers, because I know lots of communities do it. I mean, after we spoke about this last time, I went back. You Google innovative flood control, you'll see every town in the village in the country is doing it.
Doing what?
They have a sandbag program. They have DPW rolling out these things, either filling them with water. I mean, they circle whole neighborhoods with these barriers. So all I'm saying is that stuff is out there. I
So
think that there's a place in this village for that type of action. My question is, how do we move this forward a step?
simple, just as much as we were talking before about resolutions or just a list, adding like the top 3 things that the committee and with the input of the residents, what they wish to in terms of what is this considered?
Emergency preparedness.
Yeah, emergency preparedness. What do you suggest? And if you have the information about prices, include it, and then I'll bring it up to the board.
Sandbags. I used to have sandbags on my fence and the upper oak. They don't help me. And then there's the storage of them. I gotta just, I mean, for like years, I had sandbags in the bags because you're not gonna move them and then put it back out again. And so I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just too much water.
I agree
for
with you. I
sandbags.
had sandbags in my basement because I flood in Shore Acres. That Shore Acres Drive that comes down from the parkway, flooded all the time. I can't lift them.
Yeah.
And when my husband is not there, they're useless.
I think you're making reference to at one point, we were just gonna say there's gonna be a list for individuals that aren't able to.
But to avoid that, like we did with residential parking, Harrison has residential parking, Tuckahoe has residential parking. You cold call everybody, you find out who's in charge of that committee or in charge of that area, what they use, you get their supplies, their surplus, their SKU numbers, you find out their costs, they're willing to help you with that conversation. Call Louisiana, call Sandy Hook, call every place that you could find. You know, you could find any place that floods. Hoboken, they just inserted those barrier walls that would work on Hoyt and Fenimore. And actually the mechanism drops into the stormwater drain and it acts as a pulley system that drops that down and shuts the road down. These places are working. They have those barriers. They're already in flux. Break up into a subcommittee, gather it up, give yourself 2 weeks, come to the table with a bunch of different, Christmas list items to help the village and move it forward.
I know we purchased large yellow barriers that you fill with
Sick of
water.
being wet.
Ironically enough. They come in different sizes and they're really expensive though. So thank God I haven't had that chance to see if it works like yet, but yeah, we tried to do things like that for our house, but they're like yellow, we fill them with water. You can't use them below a certain temperature though, otherwise they burst.
As a resident,
I've seen this.
I can appreciate all these different ideas. It comes down to who's gonna pay for it, how much money we have. If we're talking, we're gonna get a list together, people that are gonna lift sandbags or distribute sandbags or those barriers. I'd rather the village personally keep up to date on their dredging permits, their maintenance permits on the river and getting people in there to clean that stuff up. That's gonna do more good on a storm after storm event than will storing sandbags, finding these water-filled
And what you're
containers.
saying is exactly, there should be a checklist, 72 hours out, 48 hours, and 24 hours before a storm, whether it's going.
It should be year round.
It
It should be
I
in the
understand
permit.
that.
Yes,
but-
in addition,
Exactly,
I
but in
agree.
addition
Yeah.
to-
Yeah, and the dredging permit should be
And
there.
Can I just say
You have to
something
do
to more addressed to the board? I find that when I call the village to come look at the walls or the problems, they don't help me. They always put it back on. Oh, it's fine. The wall's fine. Well, it's falling down. It was built in 1935. Oh, yeah, fix it yourself. It's your property. And then I ask for FOIL requests and I get an email finally. Yeah, we're gonna need like 3 months about June 1st to see if we can give you the FOIL request for what you're asking for. And so, they make you feel like, and then you go on the website and there's a chart with all the list of names of who asked for FOIL requests and the time it took for an employee to get that request. You know what? I don't care how much time it is. I'm a resident. I pay taxes. Get me my FOIL request. I shouldn't have to wait 2 or 3 months. And it's just a simple thing asking for storm drain maps. How hard is that to get me that? They have that. Don't, and in my email, you just come up with this cockamamie crap in the air. why they can't get it now, June 1st. Let's see if they actually answer me again. They told me they'd get back to me 2 months later, June 1st. I'm waiting to see if I get anything from this village. And I'm just asking for the information to help me and my neighborhood to see what better solutions I can come up with for the trustees to help us.
Can you email me in the morning? Because I only have not a full copy of a storm drain map right here. But if you can email me in the morning or whenever you do, what you are requesting, so then I can follow up with it, because I'm telling you, I'm not gonna remember word for word. I'm trying to write it down
I
as much,
understand.
but if you can email me,
Okay,
and I will follow up with it.
okay.
I do my best to follow up with everybody's emails.
Susan.
Yeah, I bet.
There's a-
I just think we should have better communication
Susan,
from our
Susan.
residents.
At this, the DEC hired a company, SLR, that me and Tony went out and walked with them. And that was one of the rivers that they're looking at. The report has not come out yet. They're going back and forth with the state before they reveal what their suggestions are.
See, like
So,
something like
so-
that, I would have liked to go with you to show you the whole,
no, I mean, you could have, but he's gonna do his,
talk to you
yeah.
about the whole.
yeah, they're gonna look at it, and they're looking at it right now. And they're looking at the Beaver Swamp River at this point, correct, Tony?
Who's
So,
they?
SLR. So this report's not coming out. It's coming out soon, but it hasn't come out yet because, or they finished it and they're going back and forth with the state and they're talking about it amongst themselves at this
But
point.
do you know,
And
in
then they will-
2016, there was a study that the village paid for on our Beaver Swamp Road?
No, I know, but it's a different,
They already had a study
but
done.
it's 2013 and it's a different company. and it's-
2016,
so,
and
yeah.
at that time, it was only gonna cost $3.2 million to fix.
Well, it's a different company. I'm just I'm trying to give you hope to say
we
there's
like
something that's
money.
gonna change
I know,
over there
but
very
never
soon.
fix anything.
You know, I was listening to the couple from Howard as we're all in the same neighborhood. And what I think that residents aren't seeing, and with all this inventing 2 years later, we have the dredging, we have the Army Corps coming, but we need a tangible timeline of additional parallel mitigation
To help us
set
get
up
to that point.
and moving forward. We know that these things are happening. The rest has to happen because 14 feet, the Army Corps is only going to buy us back 4 feet. The sewers are going to buy us back 2 feet. Now we have to start chipping away at the balance. And residents we're here and we're out of money and we're out of time.
And
So we
I-
need a plan
Yeah.
that's going to support us and give us that day 2 level, day 3 level, day 5.
So a timeline of, because I'm not sure who said it, a timeline of,
Parallel
mitigation on a weekly or monthly basis.
We need, no, you need to create now additional
No,
parallel
I know that,
mitigation
I
to
know that,
support.
and I'm quite sure it's being done.
No, I know that,
So
but I
what
think
I'm-
what everybody is saying, like Beaver Swamp, you have Howard, you have people that are not in that know or in
So
the
that's what
circle
I'm
or at
saying,
the
create a
table.
timeline, whether it's talking about what's being done weekly or monthly, and that we can distribute to the community.
Right, but in addition to the conversations that you're having with barriers, communicating with other
Yes.
municipalities that actually flood, to implement what's working for them here, because we don't have any other resources now. We have nothing that's implemented and in process except for what is coming down the road.
So I think that's a good point. We bought our house 5 years ago and immediately experienced several feet of water outside of our house and, foot of water, 15 inches, 18 inches over several instances, right, between when we bought our house and Ida, and then obviously Ida happened, which is a whole different situation. But I think you bring up a good point about the communication. I think you guys are doing a really good job, and I just want to thank everyone. I've never come to one of these meetings, but we've been here for 5 years, and we're really at the point where we're trying to decide if we are investing our life in Mamaroneck, and we love Mamaroneck. We love being here. I work in the city sometimes, so I walk to the train, and The problem that we're having is we bought our house, we love our neighbors, we love our neighborhood, we love the town, but we cannot be in a situation where we're losing sleep every night that it rains. I mean, the other night, you know, the river overtopped its banks on both sides of us, and we ended up with water in the basement. Not
But enough.
over the ground water coming in, but groundwater coming up underneath because everything was so saturated and whatever. So I second what you're saying, in that I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job in bringing up all of these issues, but I think it would help to have a little more communication that's a bit more clear, that tells us what's going on. Because, you know, we read the minutes and we see what's going on. Like I said, this is our first time here, so thank you everyone for bearing with our questions. But if there was some type of, like you said, a monthly or weekly might be a lot, but
No, but
some
no,
type
it's
of-
not, I'm not sending it out I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not saying that I want to send it out weekly or monthly. I'm saying, like, if there's a schedule that DPW or the village does on a daily basis or a
Oh,
monthly basis or
yes, that
weekly
would be
basis,
wonderful.
so that the residents know that these things are happening. Not to do it like on a, you know,
Yeah,
but it's just their schedule of how they update.
That would be great.
2025, this is scheduled to happen. June of 2028.
Well, or no, just like, because I know that there are things being done, but again, it is the communication, it is the transparency. And it's something that I put on the work agenda in terms of how we can best communicate to our residents, because that is a gap, not even just with this committee, with all, with everything going on in the village. We can communicate through our newsletter, which is great. We can communicate on our website, which still needs work. But how else are we communicating? Because
How about like putting something
so-
like this just on our flood mitigation with?
it's still not enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything.
No,
I
because
see now is being done.
that's a wish list.
Well, a lot of it
right?
is the stuff that's being done.
Right,
now.
like that's a
Yeah.
wish list, what we're talking about here,
No,
barriers,
I appreciate it.
communicating
Yeah.
with our, it's not listening to what our great DPW workers are doing as they're clearing out and they're making way for the Army Corps. What's gonna happen next? What are you going,
It's all of
what,
Yeah.
no, but what is, are you purchasing barriers? Are you purchasing arms? Where are the river gauges? Because river gauges help your flood insurance, helps us stay in Mamaroneck instead of us paying $8,000 on top of your home insurance to live in beachfront property that we didn't sign up for.
So I
You know,
think,
like items like that. We need additional parallel mitigation that's robust. And right now, we only have two items, river dredging and the Army Corps. Sewers for our area are coming in. We have sidewalks that are coming in, but that's nowhere near enough to barrier what happens on a weekly, monthly rainfall. So we need other items on this list to say, arms are coming in, dry wells are coming in, we're purchasing property for open space are coming in. We need to know that to be secure.
so I think it's good to have, like you said, the maintenance that's going on all the time, right? This is what we're working on. This is what's actively going on now. This is what the outlook is for the next couple months, the next couple years, the next
But I
10
think
years,
that's what
whatever.
this is though. I mean.
But so I read that.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand it.
No.
I mean, we have
So-
to.
That was my attempt.
Oh, I
It's short.
appreciate it.
But I think
But-
if we were to build this up a little bit.
Oh, Patty, we did it. Is that the other?
So if you
copy,
decide
Patty?
that the action item, just theoretically, sandbags are going to work in a couple areas, so we're gonna go with sandbags. We'd like to know, as residents, these are the areas we're putting sandbags out. This is when we're going to do it prior to storms. This is how we're gonna target the storms that we're going to put it out for, and these are the people who are going to help the residents do this. So that way, just hearing we're going to put, and I'm just picking on sandbags as an example, but just hearing we'd like to use sandbags to help flood mitigation doesn't mean anything to us unless there's an actionable plan, like you're saying, where this is what we're doing, this is when we're doing it, this is how we're deciding that this is important. So that way, because there's a ton of really good ideas, but it seems to me, based on the discussion, and I could be wrong, that a lot of them at this point are really just ideas, and we need those ideas to be implemented, and we need to understand how they're being implemented.
And then the next question will be, and this is just, a broad one, how would you like that information disseminated? Because if we put it on the website, is that good enough? Or if we put it on our newsletter, is that good enough? Or if we put it on the Facebook, one of the many flood platforms, is that, or community flood platforms, is that good enough? What is good enough in terms of dissemination?
I think.
And I know we can't be perfect.
And I have
No,
to
but-
say that Facebook page, I think Rawlings is in charge of it or something. I have tried a few times, 2, 3 times to post something important and he never approves it.
So I don't know if that is still valid. I think
It is
whether,
in function. I just posted something this morning.
is it?
So it needs, if it's going to be
Something-
active,
Who's the
I
admin?
think it's Tom.
Okay.
What is the page called?
Yeah, but
The
that's
one
not,
that I
that's not
see
an
on it-
official, that's
I'd
not an
like to
official,
suggest, like, a
that's not an
newsletter or
official
a
update.
I would,
So-
I would
The
make
official
official.
updates.
I would do everything on one place.
Yeah.
Don't,
And then you
don't
can
make,
do links to it.
I would
But
do
that's not
the
an official,
website.
that's not an official village
Under-
It has to be on the
website.
I would
village
do
It's gotta
the
be on the
village.
village website.
I would do the village website and then
Yeah.
everything references one place.
Yeah,
That's
you can't-
fine.
But I
Yeah,
think,
that's-
I also think you're
Nobody's
trying to,
relying on Facebook.
I think you're trying to mix two things. I think what I'm hearing at least is you're looking for an emergency preparedness kind of site where what's gonna happen next? Are you gonna come in and distribute sandbags on a certain date? Are you going to, if we do flood, where can we go? Where can we get help? As opposed to what we're talking about are items that we can look into to try to help with the flooding. And I think that's two different
Yeah.
things.
There are two different things, but I think we need information on both.
You probably
because
Absolutely, I'm
it's
not
hard
saying
for us
that,
to find
but I
it.
think the emergency one, Lonnie, I think we talked about at one of our first meetings, is we need to have people prepared for an emergency. And that's,
Which we still haven't done.
I don't think the
and I think that's
transparency
very
is good.
important.
The transparency is good too,
That
It
because
means a lot.
there's a
yeah.
lot of things that these guys are doing that are behind the scenes that I go to work every day. And I don't know what the hell the village Granite DPW is doing or what the board's doing or what the mayor is doing. I have no freaking clue. I just know that when it rains, I get mad and that doesn't help anyone. But, it'd be nice to see, all right, well, the village is taking actions. It's not happening today. It's not happening tomorrow. There's a capital budget. This is what's happening now. This is what's happening down the road. This is what the goal is for the future. Gauge it. It's not hard to have a look ahead, and frankly, it would help the politicians because, oh my God, nothing's happening on Fenimore. Well, it's gonna happen in 2 years. We're waiting for this funding or waiting
Yeah,
for.
but this is
for
what we're
New
doing in the
York.
meantime.
This is what we're doing in
6
the
months.
meantime.
This is what.
But you know
yeah.
what, and I have a question about that capital budget.
Excuse me,
When
excuse me,
things are put
Susan,
into
excuse
the-
me,
she
Susan,
was-
Susan,
she was
excuse me. Excuse me, I want to say something to them. Okay, I've had conversations with the mayor and I've told him, people need to be in the know. Those were my exact words. And he agreed with me because there's a lot of speculation, and when you speculate bad things, always not good things and whatever. But as far as this committee, we are pushing the BOT, the Board of Trustees, as much as we can. And it has to go from us to them, to the village manager, and then the village manager figures everything out.
Oh, yeah.
We will push him I will push Jerry to no end for us and whoever gets flooded. And that's the chain of command. I know it sounds like a big mumbo jumbo
We
right
get
now,
it.
but
Yeah.
but we're here to make suggestions. That's what our job is to do, is to make suggestions and to push it on them and stay on top of them. And I agree with you. We should be in the know, and there should be transparency on what's going on and what's happening. Like the dam update. I have an update from Gino. I spoke to Gino on the phone about the dam and what's going on right now. And it's going to the DEC right now, and they're filing an EAP and all these forms to go to the DEC first, and then it's gonna come back, and then it will lay on their desks, and they will make a decision on the 4 things that they should be doing with the dam. And when that comes up, we have to
Evaluate.
we have to, as a community, get together and say what's best for Mamaroneck, and we have to do that. So we are
No, like-
definitely pushing,
All right, so,
and it's suggestions. We're making suggestions.
I think, yeah.
And we appreciate all the time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's Susan and then
was,
Dave.
yeah.
Susan?
So for the capital budget, so I understand now that even though something's on a list for the future in a few years, 4 or 5 years, 6
Mhm.
years, it's not necessarily that it's gonna get done. That actually will come to fruition.
Yes.
So-
It's not
A given.
a given,
So
because
that's
we have to go
giving
based,
me no
we have,
hope.
no, but I mean, it's,
All right,
hold on,
I'm sorry.
hold on. With the capital budget, all departments gave us their wish list of what, and then they also listed what's important, most important to what they need right now. Can we get through everything? We have to get through obviously things that are important to in terms of infrastructure. If our fire trucks are falling apart, we have to fix them, or we have to update them.
I
So
understand
we go based upon those priorities. Not every little nick and cranny we may get to it, but we are aware of the priorities in our community.
But, hey, just an example, we've been in that list for a long time now, but yet when Florence Park after Ida, boom, I saw they got their stormwater, put in that almost $7 million budget thing, boom, like that. They got help right away, but yet we're still, but our stormwater problem is huge, but we don't count over where we're at.
Mhm.
So Leilani,
Yeah.
I think Patty and worked on that, my horrible list, right? So I think this partially answers your question. The idea with that list was that, yes, a lot of the stuff was wish lists, but then the columns this way was like, okay, it's approved and a timeline.
No, it was an actual list that was
No, I know,
from the
but-
Village Manor a few years ago.
Well, right, but all I'm saying is, if we tightened up this list, and then you can see it'll be posted every month, I think that would be a help to everybody, right? I mean,
Well, I think this was good from Dan as well, and I'm gonna put some of these points on that list.
So we'll tighten up our list to try to make it real, like, okay, this is a wish list, this has been approved, okay? That, I think that'll help.
And secondly, that program that New York State had where you fill out the application, and it said it would help. And I have like the things that it said they would help you with, like sewer back, flow valves and stuff. So when they called me and I asked them about that, I said, well, they said, well, are you living in your house? I'm like, well, yeah, you're calling me like a year plus later after this thing happened, year and a half, And I said, but I really need money. I need help to do my sewer backflow valve. That would be one problem that if I could get that fixed, that's one thing I could stop sewage from coming into my house. Nope, they won't help me because I'm living in my house. So what was the whole point of
Is that the state?
Yeah, they called me too.
of filling that out
What are they
and
saying?
asking for help and they won't help
They said the
you?
same thing to Sue that
Yeah.
they said to me. They wanted a complete list of my financials. They said, well, anything that you've done as far as, mitigation for your house, we can't help you with any further. If there's anything you can't go going forward, we can't guarantee you any help, but we can review it. So basically, they want you to go through the hoops. There's no help for the middle class. There's no
She
help
didn't even
for
know she
for
closed
any of
my
us.
case.
They
Yeah.
just
No, I
don't
know
want to help
that.
you.
I know that.
Yeah, they just don't want to help you.
Right.
They
No help.
didn't want to hear it. They were like, oh, well, we could do this. So I said, well, I need to seal my house. I need to dig a trench, put a French drain in, seal my house. Get 2 estimates, but if it's $4,200, it won't be anywhere even near half of that is what we offer you. You might get $200. but
It's not $4,200.
I'm just making
Yeah.
up, fake numbers,
So-
fake numbers.
So, Leilani, we have to get some more information on what the village passed. They passed it, what, about a month ago?
On Hunter's tier.
Excuse me?
Is that what you're talking about, the Hunter's tier?
The zone, the Hunter.
Yes, that's what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about
The grant.
right.
Yes, that is still, we're still waiting for that because I did speak to Jerry. There's something that's coming, that another similar government, I think that's what you guys are talking about in terms of financial help. He's waiting for how they categorize their application process so that we can then offset it. in the
Well,
sense.
we just got minus right out of the game. They basically told us you could apply, but we really can't help you.
Yeah, if you're, yeah.
So if you can give me,
I'll send it
Is
to
there an
you.
income, is there an income floor that you have to be
They
able to?
didn't say it, but they
They,
just
they,
wouldn't
they,
help
they
me
just
out.
want all your financials. They wanted to know if FEMA was assisting you, if you had
we have,
flood
a-
insurance, which we all know we have flood insurance, but it covers nothing.
right.
And,
I
you know,
don't. I don't.
That's
And if
what
you
we
were
have.
living, if you were living in your house, they're not gonna help.
yeah. if
But
you're-
that's why we set aside that 250, which is different than the 30,000 that Dave advocated for. But we set aside that 250,000 for individuals who don't, they don't, they're not eligible for that one, because I knew when the Governor Hochul's people came down and at the MAS and they said, I was like, this doesn't even apply for the middle class. There's no
No,
way
we
that they
were
would
wiped out
affect that.
then.
So that's why I was trying to advocate for that money, which Jerry, we were able to. Hopefully in the years to come, we'll be able to put aside more.
But is that money only gonna be for certain income levels in our
No,
village?
it's for the village residents.
But that hasn't gone through yet.
That,
So you
no,
could
it
apply
has
for
gone
grants,
through.
they
We
should
just have
But
to have.
the program's not set
when
up.
it
The
comes through.
program's not set up yet.
Uh,
And hopefully we'll have the program set up really soon.
Yeah, it's great
They didn't
news.
set the
I know.
program up.
That's really good.
Right.
That's
No, I
wonderful
got
to
nothing
hear. Those
to-
types of things are nice
So,
to hear about.
yeah,
Melanie, would that apply to, for example, years ago, there was talk about giving incentive to, if you wanted to change from impervious to pervious surface, so your driveway,
Right.
but nothing came to fruition.
I don't know, but maybe that will fall under in which, I don't know how much that will cost somebody. Maybe that will fall under the 30,000, but then that would be like, you're probably getting like a few $100s from that. So I don't know, but I can ask.
But we're gonna put, that's gonna be part of the motion on the codes, to put in retention, detention, incentive programs, that's what, yeah. So Dave's up.
We left a couple of topics before, and I don't feel they were resolved. We can't communicate anything if we don't have something to communicate. And I feel that when it comes to preventative mitigation and parallel with that, emergency preparedness. And we talked about, well, somebody called Louisiana and somebody called Hoboken, and this kind of thing. Our job is to advise the trustees, advise the board. And we don't have something specific to advise them about. We've heard this idea, that idea. We don't know what's specific to the village, what's cost effective and practical for the village. And I think that it's important that we do that. And I don't know how we do it. I don't know if three of us could get together and start calling Louisiana and are able to come up with a cost-effective, practical way of doing parallel practical plans. On 3 days before the hurricane's going to land here, we do this is the village. These are stored here and they get moved to there and they get water put in them, whatever. But it has to be very specific. DPW is not going to say, well, what are we going to do now? No, they've got to have a plan. And it's got to be us. It's got to be to initiate, at least from the people point of view, these plans. Maybe Jerry's doing things, I don't know. But from the committee, so how do we do that? How do we come up with a practical, cost-effective, implementable plan that puts this on this corner, that on this corner, and these sandbags here, and tell people they should do this and this in their houses?
Should we have some kind of motion saying that it should be studied, that is something that we recommend, that the Board of Trustees comes up with that plan, hires a consultant to come up with that plan?
I think
It's just research. I mean,
it's
not to.
research, do a
It's
survey.
like who's volunteering out of you guys to do some
I
research.
mean, 'cause I don't
You
know
need
if
to
we
break
have
down
the
in
time,
subcommittee.
I don't know if we have the time and expertise to do that.
Or talk to Jerry and figure out how to do it and make a subcommittee. You have a Washingtonville Neighborhood Association. I'm sure there's 3 of us that would be glad to get on the phone with one municipality and ask them for their flood mitigation plan and forward it here, and everybody start picking through a wish list. Send out a survey monkey to every resident that you know that have flooded and say, what is your need? What is your want? What is your wish? And start populating an Excel sheet and start plucking out ideas and narrowing them down and making the calls and getting action.
at the end of the day, I'm sure that each community or state went to another state or community to figure out what they were doing. How
We
they.
have to reinvent the wheel.
Right,
Yeah,
it's
you don't make the
research
study
is
that
what
we
it is.
studied ad nauseam.
About 2 years ago, you might remember, Tony, I proposed that we divided our committee into subcommittees. And each subcommittee tackle one issue. And we can bring people from outside. They don't have to be in the committee. We can bring a volunteer or two to help us. But we can't do everything ourselves.
It's a phone call. Somebody take Hoboken, somebody take Long Island, somebody take, the Bronx River Parkway. Somebody take anything, but you make a phone call, you ask them for their information. I'm from the village of Mamaroneck. Clearly you've heard of us. We need some help. We need to know what your plan is. You could get that done in a month and a half.
I was in the committee for the environment about 50 years ago. And we divided ourselves into subcommittees and we accomplished a lot. I was in charge of bringing the farmers market here to the village. And we brought it took us about 4 years, but we finally did it. And each group had a task and they did it. And we could do the same.
Okay, so I hear that maybe if we did a subcommittee on emergency preparedness, we might be more effective. So does someone want to be on that subcommittee?
When you say emergency preparedness.
Can you have other people to be on it who's not on your committee?
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically sandbags. What should we do and how would we do it? And as Laura and Jimmy.
You're
are
not talking
saying-
about flood mitigation, you're talking about how to be prepared for a flood.
How to be
Right. How do we
prepared,
just, and I brought this up so many times and I really feel that I never, and you might guys all hate what I'm gonna say right now, but that I really haven't felt that I've gotten positive feedback on like this type of program. It's just, because I believe in sandbags. I mean, Andrew left already, but if you put sandbags over those railroad tracks, those flats, that whole darn industrial district where his properties are, the water wouldn't run down that way.
But
So
I
let me
agree.
say, I'm sorry, with the sandbags
No, that's all right.
are not a bad idea. But is there a better idea that's more modern?
Yes.
You know what I mean? That people like, that's
Yes, I would say
something that's gonna be equivalent or better than
Yeah,
at this
today's
time?
technology, we coming
So
up.
I'd like to suggest, instead of discussing it at this meeting, we set aside 3 or 4 people to then research these ideas and like, I'm sorry, I forgot your name down there. Dave,
David,
I think Dave makes a good point. You have to have people set aside to be able to build this plan.
All right,
So
so
we
how
talk
about-
about it ad nauseum here.
I'm happy to meet with that. I'm happy to have a coffee with anybody who wants to help in this effort. So. Are you buying?
What about a donut? Bernie ain't bringing those.
I got one donut, we'll cut it into 12 pieces.
Split one though.
Take control, Tony, take control of it. You have the passion
Okay,
for it.
so I will,
do it.
give me your emails. I have yours. I don't know if I have yours. Give me your emails and I'll send out a note. I'll invite you over to my house. We'll have a barbecue.
I can tell you what kind of barriers we got.
Well, okay.
All right?
Are you talking about flood mitigation or emergency preparedness?
Emergency preparedness.
And flood mitigation would be apparatus items. That's not.
The whole, no, emergency.
That should be
Sandbags, barriers.
coincide, because like dry wells and stuff like that is mitigation, it's preventing.
What if we,
So,
I got that phone with me with that.
yeah, even the valves, so that, you can put in your
I made a
toilet and
form on
stuff.
all the long-term.
What are those?
What links?
Yeah, but you can skip it with your toilets.
That wouldn't work in our neck of the woods. Not in my neck of the woods, that would work. Like, that water came busting through walls and doors. floors.
That's what I wanted to say about the sandbags, which I did get them from the Fuller Center. They did
I know.
drop them off and I did use them. And you know what? They ended up in my basement.
Yeah.
With the,
Now I don't know what to do
with the
with it.
7 feet of water.
They don't, when they got 7 feet of water, they don't.
Well, but there are barriers that
Or
will,
barriers that
will do that. And there are barriers specific to train tracks and there are barriers specific to everything that we're talking about. We just have to go out and
I'll
shop.
have yours to put it on again, you know.
Yeah, Tony, could we talk about the hunter lot zone change?
So,
I'm going to do it.
sure. All right, so last item for tonight, I'm not familiar, I haven't looked at it carefully, but do you know what they changed?
What they changed was in C1 and C2 areas, it's basically saying that the 15% open space requirement includes rooftop gardens or other things like that. I mean, that was basically what it was. And I think I think there's a lot of choices of what we can do. And that's why it gets a little complex. And there might be difference of opinion on what we should do about it. And I mean, because it has to do with affordable housing in the village, but it's kind of bypassing flood regulations to do it. So
That should not be allowed.
yeah, which is the issue, but this was already signed. So I think, we have basically 4 choices. One, it's no good. Don't pass the, unpass the regulation, which probably might not be the best choice. Another thing is a study, which is, again, study these regulations before they're actually implemented. Another one is that we believe that the regulation should be amended so the 15% open space requirement should not include rooftop gardens. And the fourth is that, we believe the regulation should be amended so the 15% open space requirements do not include flood zones like AE1, A1 through A30, etc. So
Wait, Steve, repeat that one again, that last one.
the last one is that we believe the regulation should be amended so the 15% open space requirement should not include roof gardens in C1 and C2 zones that are in flood zones, i.e. zones AE, AE1 through AE30, AH, AO, all the different flood zones. So,
I keep going, I'm sorry.
yeah, so those are basically, I think, the 4 things that we actually have to decide if we do, that the 4 choices that we have to amend this or to vote against it, that we think is a bad law. And I think we could start with something like, the members of FMAC, applaud all and every effort to increase the stock of affordable housing in the village. We also believe that for all land use decisions, more than an eye has to be kept on the impact of flooding in the village. With this in mind, we propose one of these 4 things. And I think we have to discuss what we want to say, if we could agree on something or not.
You think they would know better?
So do you believe that do you think that the 100 tiers is in the flood zone?
100 tier isn't, but C1, C2, I mean, has parts of it in flood zones. For instance, C1, C2 is Beaver Creek.
Who?
Beaver Creek
Okay.
is C1, C2.
Swamp.
Beaver Swamp, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
That's all C1, C2. So it's basically
Leilani, I'm sorry.
What does that mean?
When you said you don't think it's in a flood zone,
No, I asked.
Hunter isn't.
isn't, but it's residual will land.
It's
Washington.
the C1 and C,
Yeah,
which is
which
what
is
C1,
Bernie brings
C2.
up all the
It's from
time.
Aramaic Avenue all the way down,
Mhm.
but from the train.
So I asked about specifically 100 tiers and in terms of the residual flowing backwards instead of flowing outwards because where it's all located. So what I was told by the engineer is that it's not, the water channels flow outward. It will flow
To the river,
to the, yes, to
down the hill, down Prospect.
yes. thank
That's
you. I'm
awesome.
so sorry. I was like, yes, it will flow down Prospect and out towards the Sound. It's not gonna flow back into the flats. Now, what I then asked, I said, well, don't you think that if it's too much, it will back up and then affect individuals out back then. And the discussion was then, no, not really, because of all the work that's is also being done by Tompkins and what's the other one?
Anymore?
No,
No?
Tompkins and
Anita Lane?
there's another bridge.
Ward.
Ward, thank you. That to help with that, it will just flow. That was the answer.
But that's such a sad answer.
But we can go back and
That's
have
the-
more
no, we need to have a
conversation.
That's the
conversation.
developer
Yeah.
engineer.
It's the village engineer.
Because C1.
Can you tell me what the C1 and C2 is?
C1 is zoning runs along Boston Post Road, would include Beaver Creek and Harbor Island Park. That's C1. C2 is the zoning that runs along Mamaroneck Avenue, starting at Harbor Island Park, bordered by the river to the east, the train to the north. We're going to Library Lane, Mount Pleasant Avenue, and Maple Avenue. It kind of just runs that way. So that's all C2. So to me, I mean, it's obvious, anything on, if they want to do it right on Harbor Island, I mean, next to Harbor Island Park, that's a flood zone. If they're doing it on, next to Beaver Creek, it's a flood zone. So,
So does this code change? So the code change affects the Hunter Tier parking lot and the C1 and C2 you're referencing.
Hunter parking lot is in C1.
Right, but
And the post road, you're
the
saying?
code change applies to not only Hunter Tier, but the C1 and C2 districts.
Yes.
And
Which,
so we have to go back.
yeah, which coincides with A1, AE, A1 to 30, A30, AH, AO, VE1, VE1 through 30, all those flood zones, which
So
are.
it
And
sounds,
the only
Anything
big
being
area on
built-
the post road is,
Yeah.
you know, by the Toyota, which is right next to
Yeah.
the brook.
That's
Anything
Beaver
on a
Creek,
hill,
yeah.
water finds its way. Water isn't going to be directed by where the engineer says it's
Yeah.
going to go.
Yeah.
Anything built after what happened in Ida, shame on our village for not instituting that building to hold its water rather than to let it run where it's going to choose.
Which building?
The Hunter lot. I approve of affordable housing. I applaud it. But what
The
needs to-
building hasn't been designed yet.
But I know that, but to approve the coding to
Coding
not
for it.
have water retention and to exclude that,
So we haven't excluded anything and we haven't really, we did, if there's something, and again, ink, you could put things in ink, and if we have to change it, then we'll change it. That's
So-
things that can,
But
it
this
can be
is-
amended.
this is what I'm worried about as a flood victim.
Uh-huh,
At this point, 2 years later,
uh-huh.
on all due respect, we shouldn't be hashing this out. That should have been A number one. What can we do to make sure we protect everybody involved? A number one, no conversation, no ands, ifs, buts, maybe, maybe not, maybe it won't, maybe it will, because it will.
Because if
It should have been, flooding should be
Yeah,
the
there's no
most
buts
important
anymore.
thing.
it is, and if things were, if things were ran by our engineers and everybody else, right? All the necessary channels. What else do you think, or do you feel that the village needs to do?
Every building that's built in this village of Mamaroneck should be flood compliant. We're a flood zone, period, the end.
And
The maps,
Period, the
the
end.
maps, the maps are
I agree.
not right. Every one of these, 95% of Mamaroneck drains into the rivers and into the harbor and into the flood zones. So the mentality has to change, the thinking has to change. Like, I went to the planning board about a property on Barry Avenue. It's not technically in the flood zone, but their water runs off of their property and goes down the street to First Street. So they should be just
As stringent.
as
coded
stringent
as-
as to them as they are as a person in the flood zone. It's just the
And
fact, their
instead
water,
of changing
their
C1
water-
and
It should be
C2,
water
allowing
their
Please.
building
water
lots, they
is,
should be
excuse
doing
me,
more green
please.
so why
Excuse me,
don't,
please. So,
so why don't we do this? We have the motion, we have a motion already approved to tighten up the stormwater flood code.
yes.
Right, to add incentives to do more retention, detention, green infrastructure. Why don't we add bullet point number 3, please review the recent code changes to the C1 and C2 districts to strengthen flood control versus weakening flood control. I don't know, that's.
Okay,
I'm just
can I say,
waiting.
I gotta
And
say
you
one thing.
forgot enforcement.
Yeah,
You know, it blows my mind. The conversation of, we're trying to figure out how to stop flooding and come up with plans to stop flooding, and then they're talking about building. Before they corrected any of the flooding, they're talking about building. And
Well, that's my point, Jimmy. I've been to planning boards and I went to the one Barry Avenue. I went to Van Rance. They're doing this one in Prospect across from the library. And I'm like, your water goes into the river, no matter how you slice it. The maps don't necessarily say it, but that's what happens. It goes into the river. This new project that's across the street from the library got flagged by DEC saying they were in a watershed. And then they're trying to fight to get it pulled out of the watershed. But I am going to fight to have it in the watershed because they don't want to be in the watershed.
The Hunter lot.
No, the one across from the library.
Okay.
They're tearing the two houses down
Right.
and they're putting one big unit there and they're doing that, which is fine. I don't mind it. Look, if they're going to make it nicer, they're going to do it. But don't have one single drop of water come off of their property and go down to the river. I don't care what anybody says. You want to do a study? I'm not waiting for any more studies to be done to find out if that property is going to impact it. Okay? No,
Everything
let's do
impacts.
it. Let's do it the right way. Let's have the flood retention, detention roofs, everything. 500 years, impervious parking lots. Let's do it like they are in the flood zones. Let's do that multifamily like they are in the flood
I
zones.
agree.
And we don't have to sit up at night.
What,
And as a committee also, we're not a land use board, period. Let's set them in place. Let's and let the plan, the land use boards figure it out. 7 years, 7-year insurance policy is not good enough for me. And that's what a 100-year storm is. So it's not good enough.
So in regards to I know I said if you can have the code, the code suggestions by the 7th, if you can have it by the 5th, so I can then run it by Greg, who's the planner, so then I can then put it on, I can have suggestions to put on for the work
You
session.
want me to add the bullet point on change the C1, C2, don't you?
All of it.
Has to ask. That's.
I
committee.
think-
Because I want to.
No, hang on, wait a minute.
I want to
Do
speak
that
to
right next to
Greg
the road.
before I-
Committee members, we have the motion that basically says we want to tighten up the codes. We want the incentive programs for detention, retention, green infrastructure. We want to tighten up enforcement. Do we want to add another bullet point to that motion saying we would like to see the current code changes to C1 and C2 reviewed to be included in this much tighter.
I almost think we have to be a little more specific on it because I think since it's just passed, I think.
Well, but Lonnie's saying if we get it to this motion to her very
Yeah.
soon,
Yeah,
she
then they
can
can-
then get to Greg, talk to Greg.
Yeah.
And at least it will have it.
We'll be in the
have it
negotiations.
And we'll have it on record that we're like, no, this is not okay.
So that we can then discuss it at the work
You know,
session.
living in
Because you don't want
Washington
to
Mills.
wait for the other work session.
Let me ask a
That's all
question,
I'm
Tony.
Yes.
In our purvey of what we're supposed to do with building code, is this only for buildings in flood zones or do we have a broader?
No.
Okay.
The LWP in our town is exactly what Bernie said, that every drop of water that hits our town, that's what. how
Goes
the
into
LWP I know
the stream.
It goes to
A
either.
storm
river-
drain and then it goes. to the
I understand,
Yeah.
but I'm just wondering
Yes,
if
we're
our
the-
review
yes,
is
we're the-
broad. It's
yeah,
not just properties in flood zones, it's properties anywhere.
Everything.
Because I know the properties that I've been reviewing and been asked to review
Yes.
are in flood zones.
Right, I think,
So-
no, I think anything that floods or contributes to flooding is
Okay.
under the purview of this committee.
And what the committee and the board is not looking at in general is that you have to open up space, and nobody's considering that. Nobody's considering how to save and preserve what is being destroyed.
Open
You know,
space.
we're talking about building and building and building and building,
Yeah.
You need open space to hold the water back. If without that, we're gonna be in the same situation.
One of the things I said on the SLR meeting, and one of the things they were talking about was the ability for the rivers to be able to overrun. So I think some of that, when they come up with their plan, we'll be able to then say, hey, this property next to Beaver Creek is empty and we should purchase it. So I think we could then, after that,
They were really open to it.
yeah, so I think like,
That's really good.
Because that's a prime area.
Yeah.
And I tell you,
I
that
can go to that.
area down there that they want to build on right next
Yeah.
on the post road,
yeah, the Toyota,
behind that building.
Yeah.
If you look at the old historic maps, that was called Rye Lake. That was a lake.
yeah.
And then they rebuild and change things. And so just think of all that water was supposed to.
Just so you know, I know we talked about this, they're not building on the Toyota lot right now because it doesn't make economic sense for them. So they're not doing anything with that right now. Because I talked
But
to Jerry
did it
about
get
it.
approved though?
They got approved, but they're not doing anything about it because they don't need the space now.
You know, what
For a lot,
concerns
because they
me,
don't have enough, they have enough space now for cars.
on Center Street, there is a
There's no
hundred,
cars for space.
on Center Street, there's 100 by 100 building out, Leilani. On Center Street, there's 100 by 100 building lot, right on the corner, it's Center and
Yes,
Plaza.
yes.
The possibility on that property
Oh.
that the Mason, the Mason
Yes.
owns this property, and they're selling it on Trulia with the possibility of 7 townhouses there. What our BOT needs to do is create that as an open space, solve the residential parking problem, make pervious parking lot, vacate them when you know that there's a storm warning, and you have your open space and you have 100 by 100 foot dry well.
7 townhouses.
7 townhouses in the middle of the flood zone, but without the proper coding and and changing codes, you leave us in danger.
Horrible. Do we have I know Tony's not here, I might drive him crazy. Do we do a resolution to have a moratorium? I mean, it's.
Didn't have them all?
Talk about this already, a moratorium.
Tom Murphy wanted,
Many times.
Yeah.
but Tom Murphy wanted the moratorium right after Ida, and it didn't go through. It should have went through this time
Well,
around,
it's also, it could be put up again because
Right.
that is a different board.
because you have much work to do and have to go to the drawing board to be preventative and to be,
I mean, we keep saying how much open
Responsible.
building there is.
Right.
Well, we keep saying that everyone else is sending the water down to us from
Yeah.
Scarsdale, White Plains,
We're sending
Harrison.
water
But
to
we're
ourselves.
sending some water to ourselves.
our own
in some of these
enemies.
projects we are.
Do we have a resolution to send to the board?
All right, so
for
I want
moratorium or no?
to, the existing resolution on the code, I want to make another bullet point saying that fundamentally, we feel that this change in the zoning on the C1 and C2 is gonna make flooding worse, not better.
Should we say something that we agree with the goals of having housing just to make it kind of be nice about it?
I don't.
Well, it's not about going against the housing, it's about flooding.
It's flooding.
It's not, you know,
you can't have viable housing unless you fix flooding. Flooding should be number one on
and
anybody's
then they can
agenda.
build whatever they want.
Flooding,
Flooding.
housing.
All right, yes,
Traffic.
yes on adding a bullet point,
Yeah, but,
no buts.
no, go ahead.
Patty, yes or no?
Yes.
Stephen?
I still like to say the members of FMAC applaud every effort to increase the stock of affordable housing.
Fine, I'll add that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Sure.
yes,
Yeah.
all right, motion approved. All right, I would like to end this meeting.
I was gonna say, do we vote for a resolution for a moratorium?
Not tonight. We got enough
Maybe
resolutions.
Leilani could do
How about a
that.
how about a resolution to end the meeting? We'll have a
Second.
second. All right, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
Oh.
That's next step. So you're making a decision.
Okay, so
Okay,
G that we as the company.
And we went to that meeting.
H&H coming.
Yeah.
This meeting.
What if
Erica.
I do listen and I do try.
We've
I
had
just never know what
Jerry,
happens.
village manager, we had very
I do listen and I try.
the code
Yeah, I have
enforcer.
my list.
We have
Yeah.
timelines to share with you. Please come and join our organization because we give you that information as we receive it and we'll send it out.
Oh,
via
yeah.
text, via email. And, you know, Jerry
I brought it
provided
to
us
share,
with
unlike the
timeline as
donut.
well.
Okay.
Whether you look at update for your dam, you'll
I would love
get
to.
full quality of life, you know, right down to, you know, crime. You know, because it's just not about flooding, it's about everything. You want to raise your quality of life.
Thanks for the Howard Avenue.
Oh.
delegation.
Yeah, did you get there?
I'm waiting for it.
Oh,
You did.
Oh, I added it to that notebook.
Well, that's not.
I'm sorry?
She's a guest. She's a
It doesn't help
guest.
with the water.
One second.
Yeah, you know.
Here,
I had.
give me your name and your email and your phone